All right. Okay, it looks like we're live. This is going to be a little bit of an experiment, potentially, because YouTube has changed the way that they're doing live streaming. There's no longer, you could do the classic Google Hangout scenario. So I'm going to try to see if I can get my participants to come through here. And hello, SuperJohn64, and hello, Laura the Pencil Fan 8000. Okay. So what we're going to try to do is see if I can get the guests. Hello, Ari Aw. Ari Aw, hi. Okay. Let's see if I can bring anybody else into this. Maybe I can. Maybe I just have to like call them and use Discord. I guess I could. I mean, and just have it come through my computer speakers. Is that what people do now? That's a little lame on YouTube's part. Hello, Laura the Pencil Fan. Hello, Jake Sweldo. Oh, you're the Aria is the person that ate a banana because I asked them to. Amazing. Okay. So you know what I'm gonna do? We're gonna try this and we're gonna see how it sounds. Okay. So let's see. Okay. Guess what I'm using right now. Okay. So let's see.
Hey.
Hello. All right. So we're gonna see how this sounds. We're live right now, and we're gonna see if it's trash. Then we could always just throw this away and start all over again, just like Lucasfilm's gonna do. How is it? So yeah, that's right.
Starting off strong.
Time to make the petition, everybody. Okay, yeah. So just peoples, let me know if this sounds okay, and if it doesn't, we'll we'll try to figure something out, I guess. I'm seeing smiley faces.
Brian,
yeah.
You're here, so it sounds great.
Thanks, Justin. Thank you so much. That's really nice of you to say. Okay.
I'm just like scrolling through comments, being like, they're gonna let us know any moment now.
They will let us know.
This.
I mean, if no one's gonna say, and if they're just gonna keep on putting heart emojis, then I guess we just have no choice.
Emojis are good. They're good. I like them.
They are good. No, I like them.
No, that wasn't a mistake.
It wasn't a mistake. Don't worry, I'm enjoying that. I'm just want to hear if you guys can hear Justin. I want to know if you guys can hear Justin, and if you can hear him well, and it doesn't sound like trash, and phones don't ring while the stream is going, then we'll be all good. And okay, well, whatever. I guess we're just doing this. It seems because no one's gonna overtly say.
But here's the thing: either it's just a stream that turns out really well, or it's funny.
That's true. That's true. It's ironic.
Those are the only two options here.
It would be ironic, right? Okay.
SuperJohn64 can hear me.
He can hear you. All right. That's good enough. That's the bar. That is the bar that we're looking for right here. So I'm gonna say we're good.
The SuperJohn64 con. I mean, I'm surprised you didn't just listen to the video yourself, bro.
That's a really good point. All right, I'm gonna tweet this out. Tweet the link. It is official. Bada boom. Bada bang. Okay. So let's start talking about Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, Episode 9, the big hullabaloo. In case you didn't see the title, it'll be a spoiler discussion, so get out if you care, and you don't want to be spoiled about everything that happens, because we're gonna...
Well, I have the first spoiler.
Okay.
If we're good to go.
Yeah.
I feel like you didn't really need that message because no one should care.
Oh. Why shouldn't they care, Justin? Is this a hot take coming in from Mustafar?
It's just a silly little mess, but like in a cute way. Like it's like you can see where they thought that like every single decision would be like, oh man, the fans they're gonna go yas for this one, folks.
Yeah.
Woo!
So this is the thing with the movie. So I think let's cover how we. Well, we could talk about how we feel about Star Wars in general. We should also definitely put an emphasis on how we felt about the sequel trilogy up until this point.
Okay, establishing foundation here. You go ahead, Mr. Host.
Sure. Thanks so much, Justin. So that's basically, what I've felt about that is your name. I came on board. I feel like a lot of people in our generation, like the dirty little secret is that, the prequels were coming out and it was a big deal. And we all went, what's this Star Wars thing? And also Lego Star Wars was real big and that was popping. So we were like, there might be something to this whole Star Wars scenario. Actually, I think the first Star Wars movie I saw, I remember it because my school had a field day. Literally, it's called field day. I didn't mean it in the proverbial sense. And my dad was like, I found this classic movie from the library we should watch. And it was Return of the Jedi. So we started right at the beginning with the end.
But that's not.
It's not exactly. And I think from then eventually episode 1. And then from there, it was just like, okay, now I guess it's in chronological order, but I watched the last one, which maybe is why I also have like a huge affinity for how that movie opens. People complain about the Jabba the Hutt sequence. That old Jabba's Hutt. You love to see it. People complain that goes on too long and stuff. And like, I totally see where they're coming from. But to me, it's magic. It's adventure serial. It's fun. I love it. It's like distinctly Star Wars, arguably like in terms of sheer entertainment value, like kind of the best stuff that there is. So original trilogy I'm cool on. Prequel trilogy is what the prequel trilogy is, but the toys from Burger King were cool. I have a few in the back there. Revenge of the Sith is the best of them. The Phantom Menace, the Tatooine parts are I can enjoy those fine, and Attack of the Clones is completely irredeemable. And Force Awakens I really enjoyed, and The Last Jedi I loved. So how about you, Justin? What's your Star Wars?
I'm very glad you brought up Lego Star Wars because I might have just forgotten to mention that, but that was basically my entryway.
That's the thing.
I got super into Lego Star Wars, and then I brought it up to my dad, and he was like, "Yeah, no, we can watch the movies, yeah, whatever." Okay. So then we started from the actual beginning. We started from episode 4. We did 4, 5, 6. And then I was like, "Oh, Dad, do we own the prequel trilogy that I keep hearing about?" And he goes, "No, but I'll get you it for Christmas, and then you could watch it on your own."
Oh man.
And I was like, "You don't want to watch with me?" He's like, "Nah, I'm not crazy about it." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, go, sure." Yeah, and then I watched 1, 2, 3, and I cried at the end of 3, and like, it's just that when you're that, it's peak drama. Like they were supposed to be friends, and like it's intense. It's intense.
Right. No, I feel you on that. I think, look, take a step back from the vantage point and be like, yeah, Revenge of the Sith. It's a pretty tragic movie to just put out there. For the chilies, if Star Wars is supposed to be for the
Hollywood
chilies.
Did that. Can you believe it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then, so to review current opinions on those 6, like, I mean, yeah, I oddly, I just don't have particularly strong feelings on 4, 5, and 6, particularly because I haven't seen 5 and 6 in a while. But like, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, fun time. that's them. I really can't watch 1 and 2. Like I don't have a personal grudge against them, but like I can't do that. I did grow up watching the Clone Wars 2D show.
Oh, the Genndy Tartakovsky.
To the newer 3D one,
which is really good, by the way.
Really enjoy the 2D Clone Wars. And I could throw on Revenge of the Sith. Solid enough time.
Yeah, the same.
Yeah. Then we got new ones. I really like 7 and 8. I thought 7 was really fun and 8 was really interesting in a good way. Right. It was like, wow, this movie got like them themes and like it's exploring concepts. And it's like, whoa, It's not you're not just swinging some lightsabers. It's cool. It's a good time.
Yeah, so you didn't mean that in the shady way of like, oh yeah, it was interesting.
It was a movie.
It was interesting. Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, my favorite criticism. Okay. Cool. Because
but
I feel like
brings
that's
us to.
Yes.
Oh no! Well, fine. We forgot one. I also saw Star Wars: The Clone Wars movie in theaters.
Oh. Yeah.
Don't forget that one. That one. I kind of just wanted to walk out. So keep that in mind when we talk about this one. That's like.
So yeah, that one.
Instead of that, you should be having a good time.
Because from what I've seen of the Clone Wars TV show, the computer generated one, it is of a high quality. The movie, as most fans would tell you, is not. It is not at all. So, I'm sorry you had that experience. But yeah, I felt like it was important.
And we made it fun, whatever. Go ahead.
I felt like it was important to establish that context because at the time on YouTube when The Force Awakens came out, everyone comes on and like critics in general, everybody is just like, "Oh, it's great! It brings back what we love about Star Wars." As the first line says, J.J. Abrams, in a not so subtle way, is like, "Hey, this will begin to make things right. Wink, wink. The prequels gonna fix it." And yeah, it brought it back to what people cared about, and everyone's like, "I love it, I love it." And then time goes on, everyone says, we have some New Hope, whatever. Last Jedi, polarizing right out of the gate.
Didn't that much time need to pass for that one?
No, it didn't, but still, people seemed very positive on it, and now, like, looking back, I feel like a lot of people's reviews are starting out with, if they didn't originally have the opinion that they were kind of iffy on the sequel trilogy, now they're like, well, yeah, I've calmed down on The Force Awakens, you have to understand the hype. No, I still think they're really, this trilogy I've really enjoyed so far, especially Last Jedi. I've been enjoying, and I was really looking forward to the Rise of Skywalker.
No, first of all, because I'm glad that it is seen as positively as it is, because sometimes, sure, you know, as you were alluding to, like sometimes you get something that isn't such a great finale, and that just taints the entirety of the thing.
Oh, all the time.
I mean, overall, I have slightly positive feelings towards the sequel. I veer more positive than I do negative, for sure.
Okay, well, that's good, I guess.
Yeah.
That's good. So was that in recognition of the 2 entries we had before, or
that is the 3?
Okay.
Yes,
so that brings us in. That brings us in.
Honestly, okay. I'll throw this out there. I feel like I would have said the same thing before the 3rd.
Okay.
And I don't know why that makes sense, but that's the case. Where in both cases, I'm just like, I overall had a generally good time. I just don't feel particularly blown away by the whole. I think that is fairly more positive than the majority opinion.
That is. No, that honestly is. When you say, okay, what would this movie had to have done in order to blow you away, Justin?
Gosh, to blow me away, I think you just need Last Jedi too. I mean,
yeah.
I feel like I was spoiled a little bit by that movie, where like I felt like it was like a real like filmmaker's very individual vision of where to take like the legacy of these movies and really analyze it. But not just that. I think one thing that Last Jedi, Last Jedi I love as an individual movie and am more neutral on as a piece of a trilogy. Because it, honestly, as much as I like what it did with certain characters, I didn't feel like I enjoyed the characters of Finn, Poe, and Rey.
And you're lumping Rey
more than I did following The Force Awakens. Force Awakens, I was like, oh, these are some fun characters. I'm interested to see what they do. And the next movie didn't really do anything for me in that way. And if anything, the 3rd movie brought it to a downgrade.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, for me, okay. I'm s- I'm sad.
Sad. Oh no,
I'm sad,
guys.
and I
That's
don't
the
like to
chat.
look.
We got a sad boy in here.
I'm a sad boy, just like Mr. Kylo Ren's. But yeah, I hate to. I don't like coming out here with negativity and whatnot. But I feel like it's important to talk about this because if I don't, who will? You know, Justin.
I know the feel. I know the feel. No one on the internet is going to talk about their negative Star Wars opinion.
Right.
So we got to do it.
I feel like this was a moment that just passed everyone by, and no one's saying anything. So I just okay. So I mean, we could start with some things we liked. Some of it was good, I guess. Right? Maybe a little bit. A little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So we could talk about some good things.
Oh, well, okay. One really quick note I want to throw out there before we begin.
Yes,
because
please.
Just on the note of positivity, just to really round out the Star Wars experience, Mandalorian's going great.
Mandalorian is great.
Give me the baby Yoda. Give me the baby.
Show me the baby. I would like to see the baby.
That's all I want to see when I start an episode. I say that even though actually I really like everything the show has done. Like it's so. Here's the thing: no matter how negative a Star Wars movie opinion could get, the Star Wars universe, I feel positively about because of that silly little Mando.
I agree, and it's almost like they knew that they had a little bit of a I won't say disaster, but a potentially not lovely thing they were putting out there. So like, all right, well,
we can hit the foundation of Last Jedi had a lot of hate coming towards it by the prime fan base.
Yes.
So I think from their perspective, whether or not this movie was awesome or not, they were still gonna be facing a lot of problems.
Yeah, no, because this was the thing with Mandalorian. Like, so yeah, this is a good time to address it. Rogue One and Solo, it really didn't do anything for me. It didn't for you either, as I recall. So I was not really anticipating Mandalorian at all. I knew Dave Filoni was working on it, who's famed for, you know, the Clone Wars and Rebels, and George Lucas basically sees him as a son, and it kind of like there's all this hype about him being the one to carry the torch of the Star Wars franchise going forward. But also Jon Favreau was working on it, who I have enjoyed his filmography in the past, and then he made The Lion King 2019.
Oh, he got, like, that's a movie where it's like, oh, I'm getting paid for this. Might as well. But, like, we don't need to count it.
Yeah, but he made Jungle Book almost as if, like, that was the one he really wanted to do. And then, a whole different topic. But it's turned out really well, and been enjoying it. But Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, back to the...
Now we could really dig into meat.
We can talk individual elements of the movie. So we got...
Yeah.
You say you want to start with positives of the movie?
Yeah, and I have a big one right off the bat, I guess.
I wonder if it's the same one that I had. Go ahead.
I don't know, because I don't think we talked a little bit about the movie.
Yeah, we kept discussion to a minimum before this.
Right.
So I'm intrigued.
Mine is this guy. Who's C-3PO. I think.
I was gonna go with the character, but not C-3.
Okay. I'll be curious to see which one you
C-3 is an interesting one because I did get annoyed with him a few times.
Sure.
But overall, I thought he was really funny.
Oh, definitely. They've been more self-aware than ever about the characters being like, he won't shut up, you know, but I thought it was cool to see him along on the main adventure. Just if for nothing, even if you don't like the character, which I like the character, it helps it feel more Star Wars-y, right? Like I was all for campaigning. Have this movie start with a little adventure with him and R2-D2, so we bring it back to full circle. How we started with A New Hope, you know. I was in that camp. So, but I was satisfied. There were funny lines like, "Oh, you didn't say my name, but I'm all right." Great. I wish they did more with him losing his memory and like how. Okay.
You don't feel the weight of it when immediately before that they're like, "Well, R2 has a save file for me."
Yeah, and he's like, "But it's famously unreliable." Yeah, it was funny that they knew that. It was like, doesn't he back up your memory regularly? I mean, like, They're married, obviously. But the thing is, yeah.
That's the kiss we needed.
That's the kiss we need. I would have been all for that. The thing is, there were so many free tears that the mere concept of C-3PO dying generated from the trailer with the ticking one last look at my friends.
Yeah.
And then in the movie, like, you get that moment when R2 sees his buddy come back and not remember him. And it's ironically a moment that's destined to be forgotten because it's solved immediately. Right? Like, we couldn't.
Yeah, I never thought of it in the latter way, but I was about to agree that, like, yeah, that hit me a bit when I was watching the movie. I was like,
didn't it?
That's tragically sad. But you're right. It's a movie that undoes a lot of things pretty quickly.
Right. And that's yeah. So it undoes it, and you could have had a whole thing of like R2 desperately trying to give me the end of Wall C-3PO and R2D2. That's all I ask for. Okay? Just go there. If we're gonna do it, then do it. Instead, he just kind of disappears from the movie and whatever. What else?
Okay, so I was gonna bring up my character positive, and it has like 3 different asterisks on it. But I was gonna say Kylo Ren.
Well, goes without saying,
Solo
but
of the Kylo Ren verse doesn't mean anything when they're the same person. So I was gonna say I would throw Kylo into the positives. Main asterisk being before his last 10 seconds.
Oh, we'll get there.
That's potentially my least favorite thing in the whole movie.
Yeah, mine too.
And out of a list.
Yeah.
But like, throughout the entire trilogy, he has been a shining example of fun things that do a good job of combining the olds and the new.
Sure.
Because based in his history, we get a lot of the olds, but in personality, he's very much his own character. And Steven, just based in Force Awakens, I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is just a kid who throws a whole bunch of tantrums, and it's just delightful to watch. I think I am fairly easily entertained by very angry characters. And I think, you know, for an angry character, they did him as, you know, particularly well. And but also there's this Zuko-ish struggle in him, and like, you get a good feel for where it's going, but at the same time, you still want to see how it happens.
It helps that Adam Driver is an extremely talented actor.
And
you're very compelled every time you see his face on screen, which is why I was so sad that he put the helmet back on. Because I get it. Right, because they're trying to go like, oh well, he's back, he's repressing, he's relapsing, and putting back on.
There's nothing wrong with that, right?
No, there isn't. But when they try to do like the long distance conversations between him and Rey again, which is one of the best things in the Last Jedi,
not seeing his face takes away quite a bit.
She's just talking to a bucket head. You know, like you see her and all the conflict in her. You could read it so plainly on her face, and then it cuts to him. And also, his dialogue doesn't transcend beyond it. It might as well just be she's hearing his voice. I would prefer that to cutting to his helmet head. And but even what he's saying isn't as compelling as it was before. Because
are you saying that we don't want Adam Driver as a voice actor?
Well, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying,
you're saying the dialogue doesn't excel.
Though, as it is written,
not his performance.
No. His delivery is lovely as always. It is the actual content of the lines that he is saying compared to, because in Last Jedi, it's genuinely, obviously, it's the wrong move, but it is tempting when he says, it's time to let old things die. I want you to join me, right? And it makes you kind of go, oh, maybe, okay, oh, interesting. But in this movie, just like, you didn't take my hand. You will soon, right? It's like it's someone that you had a meaningful conversation with 2 years ago. And they keep texting you like, "Hey, are we ever gonna get together?"
Doing that.
How it be?
And he was wearing a shirt the whole time. So what's the point?
That wasn't. It was just a bad strategy on his part, I think.
That's why it was just so much more tempting for her last time.
Yeah, it was poor form.
Absolutely. But his form, wink, wink. Oh my gosh.
But his form. So it looks like Justin. It seems we have a bit of a dissenting perspective on how Kylo is depicted in this movie, which I've already gotten a little bit into the negative aspects of him. But
is it between us or in the comments?
Oh, between a message that I'm receiving from a new surprise guest that's inserted herself into the conversation. I don't know if you've been seeing the chat and you could guess who it is, but
I put it down 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, well, it was earlier than that, but let me hold on. I will add them, and then they can begin to make their argument, I suppose. So let's see. Hold on. What? Is Santa? Is that you?
Oh, I see who it is now.
Yeah, there you go. Did you have a happy holiday while I'm doing this, Justin? Did you have?
Absolutely. You know, it was a really chill time. I bought myself all the best things, assuredly.
You did? Oh, that's.
No, my fam got me great things too, but I'm the only one who bought the Steven Universe movie DVD. So, like, you know, that's Spideyverse art book, and I could just love it all day. Give it big hugs.
All right, so it looks like we have our guest. If she'd like to introduce herself.
I loved my introduction.
Wow, look at that. Welcome.
Hi, Justin.
Hello, Jane. Welcome to the discussion on the Rise of Skywalker. Our new favorite film.
Can you give the audience an introduction for those who haven't seen II? So go from that perspective when introducing Jane.
It's funny because she's had no involvement, which this is just collapsing into inside jokes and okay. So, Jane, you were messaging me that Kylo is a negative in this movie. I know you have much to say in regards to negative on this movie, as we all do here, but please, if you want to expand or have any sort of introduction of your choosing, please go right ahead.
No introduction. Okay. Other than that, I went to film school with you,
That's true.
I work in film, and I don't know. Does that give me some sort of validation in my opinions?
It makes you seem really legit. Like I'm gonna listen to what you have to say because it's the truth.
I paid $70,000.
Good.
So okay, when I watched Last Jedi right before going into the theater.
Yes.
And what I liked about Kylo in Last Jedi that you guys were talking a little bit about beforehand was that you see his face.
Yes.
Which is nice because Adam Driver is a very good actor. And he's an okay voice actor, but his face. And I think my real thing was right as the movie started, he's just like boring angry. It reminded me of like Force Awakens. I didn't like Force Awakens.
Right.
Hot take. I know.
Well, you haven't really liked any of the Star Wars movies up until Last Jedi. Am I correct in saying?
I mean, I haven't watched the originals in so long.
Sure.
I mean, I was like a kid, and I was like, okay, those were fine.
Right.
And then I saw Force Awakens, and I was like, I don't care about Star Wars.
Okay.
And then I saw Last Jedi, and I was like, I care a lot about Star Wars.
Right. Because you thought every character was like a bland piece of bread, in your words, I believe, in Force Awakens.
That sounds like something I probably said at some point in time.
Probably.
I just don't
even Angry Boy Kylo.
What?
Even
Angry Boy Kylo boy.
Yeah, I did not like Kylo in the first. His name is Kylo.
I totally get your feel on him in this new movie, but in Force Awakens, every single time he goes on a rampage, you're just like, yes, be
It is pretty funny when stormtroopers back away.
I want them to kill you, but it's so much fun watching you be stupid. I love it.
He's just like an angry little boy. Like I love him downstairs.
Right. Which is, I mean, to be fair, it does seem to have been the point, whether you like it or not.
So I was like, okay, in the first one, I'm like, he's not scary. He doesn't pose any threat to anyone.
Oh, never, ever. I totally agree. But that's why, I don't know, I love his appearance.
Either. So what I liked about Last Jedi is it pretty much tells you don't feel bad for Kylo. He's a little bitch boy.
Yeah.
Right, and so you felt Rise of Skywalker went back on this?
When Rise of Skywalker opens and he's just screaming at people and punching things. I'm like, ugh, I don't care.
That does happen within the first 10 seconds of footage.
Yes, literally. I'm like, ugh.
It's a montage of just edge.
Which is, by the way, do you guys know that I think that's supposed to be on Mustafar? The lava planet from Revenge of the Sith?
What?
Yeah, it's supposed to be. I think that's supposed to be Mustafar, according to people on the internet. So
you know how people on the internet are always correct about things.
Well, you know what?
Especially their opinions.
I couldn't tell because it didn't have any text pop up on screen, like in Rogue One, whenever they showed a new planet. So I was just lost. I was so confused.
I learned so much about fake planets.
Yeah. So okay, so that's really true. Yeah, and
we all don't like Rogue One, right?
No, yeah, we don't like it. I think it's the well, I mean, Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, I guess, are worse. I think Revenge of the Sith is better, honestly. And Solo, I guess I like better than Rogue One, but I'm completely apathetic about it. I just
That's what I've heard.
one ear out the other, pretty much. It starts out all right, and then they make an insane storytelling choice that just renders the rest of the movie useless and boring. So whatever. Okay, so I guess we can kind of go a little bit in somewhat of a chronological order from this point, because we kind of were talking about the opening few minutes and the insanity of the opening crawl as well, which starting with the dead speak, just cramming in so much information.
Question,
yes,
with the crawl.
Yeah.
In the other movies, did they do all capitals on people's names?
Yes.
I don't remember that.
No, they do. They do that.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
They do?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure.
They did
I
seem
thought it was
like
just that one.
No, it wasn't just that one.
So I think
the fans would rip them apart.
Mm-hmm. All right. No, it's true. So basically, what they don't do with the crawl typically is have a bunch of story points that probably should have played out on screen.
Yeah.
Be told in Cliff Note form. It's just like, I mean, what you want to see is just something along the lines of the fight between the Resistance and the First Order continues. There may be a new threat, ? We'll find out. Like, that's what the level we usually are going for. But in this one, it's the dead speak. Palpatine is back. They're trying to confirm if he is back. Kylo is also aware of this information and is going to hunt him down because he doesn't want any threat to his power. And Rey is training with Leia, and like, okay, all right, we're throwing a lot at, which fine, sure, like do that. I can roll with that. The Force Awakens kind of had that vibe also. I mean, it starts out with Luke Skywalker has vanished, but like we were covering a 30-year time gap. This takes place.
That's not surprising that like Luke is gone. It's like, okay.
No, but it has like that weight.
Palpatine's alive.
Right.
I mean, when I was younger, I would always like, when I was watching the original trilogy, I was tiny, and like so many words would be on screen. I don't want to read that nonsense. Yeah. But then I had zero problem watching the movie.
This is true.
Because like it's background information, right? But like this is like setting up that the supreme ruler of all things evil is back from the dead, fellas, and there's been communication and like all this information. And if you have a Fortnite account, you might already know this.
Right? Yeah, because for anyone who doesn't know, the message.
Great.
Yes.
I only knew about it because I know people that worked on the movie in Previs, and they told me, and I was like, no, that won't actually happen. And then it happened, and I was like, but it wasn't so much of a spoiler because it happens in the first literal second of the film.
Oh, the Palpatine's back? Yeah. So you knew before, like, the trailers and stuff, is what you're saying? That was a pretty big secret.
Yeah, I knew way back. I knew, beginning of last summer.
Whoa, we got an insider here. Look at that.
What?
That's pretty,
yeah.
You were sitting on a big secret.
Here's the thing. It's more like being cursed with knowledge, right? Rather than
I was honestly, so I knew about the Rey and him thing too, and I was like, I really hope this isn't true.
Oh.
I mean, I really hope it was something
I would say the same.
Previs and wasn't actually gonna happen. And then when it happened, I was like, oh God.
Yeah. So the stuff with Palpatine that's interesting is that we never hear that name outside of the prequel trilogy. Like, it's not mentioned in the original trilogy at all. And it's only been a few years since we learned that Palpatine was like his last name and that his first name is Sheev. So it makes it kind of weird when like we keep saying, did he not know?
I didn't know that.
Well, I didn't know that either.
But I mean, so did you just think it was still his first name? Because isn't it weird to say Rey's a Palpatine?
I thought of it. I didn't know what his first name was. Like now, I'm just gonna think Planet Sheen every time he shows up.
No, Sheev with a V, not Sheen. Sheev.
Okay, it's close enough. I can still make my Planet Sheev joke.
Sheev. Yeah, no, you can. It's valid. Yeah. So it would be like saying, "Oh, you're a Han." Like for most people, they don't know it's not his first name. But anyway, that's not even a problem.
I think if anything, it's like, did people know about him and know him by name, like at the time of the original trilogy? Because that always confused me. I've always thought like, oh, people were afraid of this Darth Vader guy. And the Emperor was behind the scenes, but like, did people know him and by name?
I really don't know. All I know is that George Lucas, in like original early treatment for Star Wars, Palpatine's name was in there. It also talks about like the
okay. But are we really buying that George Lucas has those journals he claims he has, where he wrote everything?
No. But I can believe that he had the name Palpatine for the Emperor. I can go so far as to believe that. That's fine, sure. And like I was just reading it today. There was some like really broad outline about like, oh, Palpatine rises in power and the Empire is created and the blah blah blah. All the other finer details of what happened in that trilogy, I have doubts as to how much was actually planned, but whatever. So okay, so
the prequel trilogy or this trilogy?
This trilogy. This trilogy.
Because there's a lot of denial on that too.
No, well, there's no question about that. Well, this trilogy is the trilogy in which you get to see Oscar Isaac with such a pained expression. You could tell how much he doesn't want to be saying, and he goes, "Somehow Palpatine returned," and you can tell his soul is just crushed as he's saying it.
Like he sends out a message, and then everyone's like, "Oh no, this is scary," and then later they're like, guys, we have confirmation that Palpatine is back.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
What?
He's just so tired when he says it's great. I love it. Yeah, I feel bad. But
so with that opening with him in the Palpatine lair, my question is that like a Palpatine factory? Are they making Snokes? Like there was a lot of questions raised and then never answered.
So what Palpatine says is that he's been like every voice that Ben has ever heard. And while he does that, you hear Darth Vader's voice in addition to Snoke's voice, which I guess is to suggest that every time he was like hearing his grandfather's voice and like the weight of his legacy, he was genuinely hearing Palpatine like use like a little like voice changer machine to sound like Vader, which is interesting. And Snoke, which is such a completely BS thing, is just, oh, he's been created by Palpatine the whole time. They have a big tube that they just make a bunch of Snokes in, I guess, which, what was the purpose of this? To test his allegiance to a higher order? Because if that's the case, then I would be concerned about taking him on as like an apprentice of sorts. I feel like that's how you don't get the job, but it beats me. But it's okay because now we know Snoke's backstory. Just like in the original trilogy, we knew exactly where the Emperor was from and what his whole deal was. Definitely wasn't just an evil guy in a chair. We know, so it's much better.
Okay, in slight defense of the people who care about a Snoke backstory.
Sure.
The difference is, the Emperor was kind of cool, like ever so slightly kind of cool in the OG trilogy.
Oh yeah.
But there's an element of like, you actually are intrigued by this mysterious presence, and he comes across as powerful. Sure. And he's unnerving. He's a little unnerving. Yes. Then you get Snoke, and he's like, I'm a big guy in a hologram, look out. And then the second movie is like, I'm just a guy who sits in a chair.
Right.
Like, you don't like his little bathrobe, his shiny gold bathrobe dress.
Okay. You can name one good thing about a character. It doesn't mean I care. It is good. It's okay. Fine. It's good. It's great.
I don't care about Snoke either. That's why I love when solving any questions about him in Last Jedi, they cut him in half. Like, I literally loved that.
Okay, I like it in that sense, but I get why people felt like, oh, we spent a notable amount of time on this character and got nothing out of it because he wasn't even like a cool character to begin with. Like, that's why people are like, okay, give us a little more to make our time spent feel validated.
Sure.
But I agree. I don't care about him either. Kill him.
Sure. Well, I just realized he doesn't, like, when he's in the tube, it's not like he comes with, like, the robe, the bathrobe. So now I'm just picturing that he is birthed and, like, gains a little bit of, like, self-awareness and his own consciousness. And it's like, I'm going to start wearing the robe. And Palpatine's like, no, don't wear the robe. It looks ridiculous. And he's like, no, I think it looks good. I'm like, fine, whatever. You're just a pawn to be killed anyway. What? Oh, nothing. So
here's the thing: when Snoke died, why didn't you put a new Snoke out?
Yeah. It takes a while. It takes a while to get the recipe right, you know.
I don't know. There's some formed ones in there. Also, who are those people in the crowds with all the robes?
One of them looks like a monkey man when you see him like helping with the helmets. I have no idea. Is this also where the Knights of Ren were this whole time? Like, where did they? Okay,
the Knights of Ren were the red people in Last Jedi.
No, they're the
people that they fight at the end of this movie. Right?
Also, I was told the red people in Last Jedi are the Knights of Ren.
That's just people saying that they should have been them. If they are them, then I don't know. Those
are the people that Kylo's fighting at the end of this movie, right?
Yeah, no, they're the people.
Like, why are they back?
Well, they come back when, like, you see Kylo, like, making the helmet again, and the monkey man is helping, and then they walk by in a hallway, and I wouldn't have even known it was them if they didn't have a stormtrooper in, like, a line that was probably 80-yard, just be like, oh, yeah, it's the Knights of Ren. Like, what? Why? Like, everyone wanted to see them, I guess, and we have to go down our Reddit checklist of what people have complained hasn't happened. So I guess they're in this movie, I guess, but they do nothing, and we have no sympathy towards them. Like, they were presumably also Luke's students, right? But I guess they can just die without us having any empathy for them, but we should for Kylo, I guess. Huh?
You really get the sense this guy Kylo has a history with the people he's fighting.
Oh yeah,
you could really tell by the zero interaction.
Well, I was excited when they went into like the boardroom scene. I thought he was gonna have it's like when you hire all of your friends because you become like the new boss, and then you'd have the people who weren't like force sensitive people just be like, what's with all these weird hippies coming in? I want it back to the old days, but we didn't even really get any of that dynamic. So that was very disappointing to me. But at least we got Hux. That's a positive. I liked Hux in the movie.
Here's my thing with the Hux storyline.
Yeah.
Was that it was interesting, but it happens in the span of 5 minutes.
You're generous to call it a storyline, I think.
And you're generous to call it 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Literally, I'm the spy. Just kidding. I mean, I'm the spy, but I just hate Kylo. Just kidding. I'm dead now.
That's what it is.
I mean, just like another character's death, it was quite unceremonious. It was just, dead now. Okay, let's move forward with boring general guy.
So, well, here's the thing I'll say. Hux and the way he's presented compared to, like, in Force Awakens and Last Jedi, it's obviously two very different versions of Hux. In Force Awakens, he's screaming dictator man, and Last Jedi, he's like a comedic buffoon, which I much prefer. And
so we got a sequel to Last Jedi in that respect.
That is the only thing that JJ was like, all right, I think you did that better. I'll take your interpretation and put it into this one. I feel like that's the only... Is there anything else that he did as like a conscious choice of, okay, you did that better than me, so I'll continue your version of it? I don't think there is.
No. Just definitive no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, just no. So he says he's the spy, which is probably like the biggest laugh that I get out of the movie. And then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, wait a minute, are they trying to say he was like the spy all along? Because was he just acting when he would do those crazy dictator speeches? Was it like when he said
he was the spy starting around when they got that intel?
Right. No, I
would say the same.
On rewatch, it became apparent because they say early on, like, oh, this is a new development that they have a spy. But how much funnier would it have been if it was like, oh, that's this guy who just had to pretend to be a fascist and was playing the long haul. And we see he's in Last Jedi. He says to stop firing on Luke, and there's the part when he's gonna like attack Kylo when he's down, and then Kylo starts to get up and he puts the weapon away back in his pocket. It's like, ooh, like that could have whatever. It's still funny.
You know what? I will argue just in the sense that I think it would lessen his part in Last Jedi.
Okay.
Notable. Because, I mean, the whole point of his character is getting angry about being one-upped by Kylo.
Yeah.
If he was a spy from the start, he would not care about that whatsoever.
I don't care if you win. I just want Kylo Ren to lose.
Which, I mean, if you didn't watch Last Jedi, anyone would call BS on that line. But we could at least call it funny.
It's like
based on Last Jedi.
It's like a line from Wedding Crashers. I don't care if you marry me, just don't marry him. That's where they're getting their inspiration, I think.
Oh my gosh, that's the kiss we needed.
That's
the second time I say that during this podcast.
People are Blue Jay saying general hugs in the comments. Very good.
Very good.
The prank call that ruined Star Wars with its terrible comedy that was nowhere in the original films. Ugh. Thanks for
Poe is a new character with his own way of speaking.
Yeah. Or like the scene in A New Hope when Han Solo also has an awkward phone conversation. But oh no, it was a big departure. Oh wow.
I also just think I should put this out there. In the beginning, Justin, you were reacting to Brian saying like, oh, like I'm so sad by all this. This movie made me sad. I was laughing the entire film.
But you were primed for it.
I was like, this is terrible, and I could not stop laughing.
Well, give some context. You were primed for it. I talked to you about it.
I was drunk, but that's, that's only part of it.
Well, drunk and also knowing the bad things that you were about to see unfold.
Oh, yeah, that too. I had two things. I wasn't like drunk, but I was like tipsy, and I knew it was going to happen. Sure. And so the lady went, do you want one shot or a double? And I thought about the Reylo kiss, and I was like, double.
Yeah, I think I'm one of the few people who, like, in the moment, didn't mind too much. I know you're making fun of it, Brian didn't like it. I didn't mind. It was what followed that. I was just like,
oh boy. That's going to be a heated debate, I can tell already.
Exactly that, because I'm so incredibly neutral on it. You're going to just go, it sucks. And I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
But why?
I yelled what in the theater so loudly when it happened, even though I knew it was going to happen.
Okay, so let's just...
I just expected it to happen at some point. I was just like, yeah, this is a thing that's going to happen. Just like the Finn Poe kiss is just a thing that's not going to happen.
Right. Oh, yeah. That's true. But for me, okay, let's just jump into it because this is a really controversial point. When Kylo comes up to Rey and her dead body's lying on the ground and he's like cradling her, was I the only one who was really scared that JJ was going to go full fairy tale on us and have
100%.
Have him kiss her alive?
I was like, at this point, this could happen.
I have to say, because it happened regardless, I wish that's what happened. Because that at least would have been funny.
It would be a lot more memorable. Actually, well, again, the moment after, I think, makes it double memorable. So, like...
Well, it's also weird, too, because if you look at the scene and you see, like, when they cut to the shot, like, on Ben's face, I'll say Ben because he's not Kylo anymore, so it's okay that he murdered all those people. When you see behind Rey's face, you could tell, like, she's saying things, but, like, then they cut out the lines of dialogue, and I just have to wonder, what the heck would she have said in that scenario? I guess that's why they cut it out, because it didn't really work, but yikes. Blue Jay says, the kiss I don't care much. I just love that Kylo finally smiled for once in his dumb life. Yeah, and that was creepy as well. That was, I audibly went, ugh. Because it was just, yeah, I mean, look, obviously, this is what I'll say, because Reylos, it's like a whole thing of, it doesn't have to be explained why it's like there's an element of rut-row to this relationship of the abuse.
Yeah, it's only that he says to her, "You are nothing without me." That's healthy.
You're no one, but not to me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what a nice person says to you.
Which is like the least of his many crimes that include like kidnapping her, interrogating her, torturing her, and also like killing people and in general being a fascist. But so moving past that, yeah, it's just I hesitate to say in defense of the Reylos, but I feel like why people ship them together is because of the actors' chemistry just on the surface level, which is totally. There.
For me, that's the entirety of
right,
it.
which is undeniable. And this is the thing. When
no. You guys have no idea. The number one quote they use in their shipping of them is that line.
You're
you are nothing without me.
Ooh.
That is... Wait, who's they? I need to know who they is.
It's quite a few Reylos I have seen that accidentally respond to my Twitter or Tumblr. Oh my god, they're literally, as we're speaking, I'm on Twitter and there's Reylo art that says "Be with me" on it.
Oh, it's so nice because she is a nobody and he's going to give her a big Hollywood contract as long as they...
I mean, there's passion, it's sensual, it's exciting, but then you think about it from any sort of emotional standpoint, you're just like, very icky.
Yeah. Here's the thing.
I think my biggest thing with it is just that, like, I mean, there's a lot of my things with it, but
right.
I just... I sure they have. Do they have chemistry? I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. In Force Awakens,
dynamic that I think. Finpo's good too. But
in Force Awakens,
the only interesting dynamic in the whole trilogy, I'd go as far as to say.
After Force Awakens came out and people started shipping them, I was like, "What? No, makes no sense. I don't understand." And then Last Jedi, I was like, "All right." Sure, the fact this exists is somewhat, like, I wouldn't say supported by the films, but I could see where it would come, because the only scenes they had together in Force Awakens is when he's interrogating her after he kidnapped her, and when they're like fighting to potentially the death. But this one, there were all these intimate conversations, and they touched hands, which I think, as Mark Hamill said, is like pretty sexy when it comes to Star Wars. So yeah,
this is my ultimate thing with it, is that it gives me hardcore vibes of Anakin and Padme. It's that all over again, of George Lucas being like, romance is if you throw yourself at a woman long enough until you just break her down and she eventually accepts you. That's love, right? And it's like Anakin Padme stuff all over again. It's like, I did these awful, terrible things. I murdered people, but I kind of have a heart inside of me, so you can forgive me, right?
So here's the thing with Anakin and Padme in Revenge of the Sith. In Revenge of the Sith, once he starts going down a path she can't follow, she is breaking it off, and she's upset, and she's heartbroken, and she says, "You're breaking my heart." So it kind of is a more positive depiction in that it shows you that maybe she won't go along with all the terrible things you do. But in this movie, so arguably Anakin and Padme, here's the tea, is better handled.
I know, which is awful.
Well, okay, if we're talking about a representation of a healthy dynamic, yes. If we're talking characters being interesting, I don't.
Well, yeah.
There's nothing to make me care about either character in the slightest.
Right.
What's interesting about Rey is that she doesn't, she learns her lesson that she can't forgive him. That's what Last Jedi is about, is that, he's not going to change.
Blue Jay pointed out that the touching of the hands is like the Lego movie where hand-holding is the most romantic thing possible, which is hilarious. Yeah, I mean, I agreed, obviously. It's in terms of if we're talking about what's problematic, it's one conversation, but if we're talking about who are compelling characters, it's a different scenario, but yeah, it's a whole thing, obviously, and
I just feel like Rey does the whole arc of Last Jedi, where like Rey tries to give him a chance, but she learns that some people just are, you're not going to change them.
And we see the moment of her slamming the door on him. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like redoing that plotline takes away something really interesting Rey had to learn as someone from nowhere, having to realize that some people, even though you went through this great transformative thing, that's not going to be true of other people as well. And that's a really interesting thing for her to then have to grapple in the next movie is, okay, I can't change this person, but I don't like violence, so what do I do now?
Right. Well, she's only a one. Yeah.
But they changed what her purpose was, right? By making more into, well, what if she doesn't stay the good? So it became less about trying to change Kylo and more like, what if I change by accident?
So
yes. Just when I blink and oh no, I'm bad now, and I can't stop myself. I am bad.
So
also evil Rey.
Yeah,
I laughed very hard in the theater at that.
It was clickbait in the trailer because it doesn't even register. And they went so far as to give her like creepy vampire teeth, and you still kind of just forget it even happened in this movie. Yeah. Because they're really trying to push in on, oh, well, this is what annoyed me the most about when J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio, who he's the other writer of the movie. You may know him from his hits such as Batman v Superman and Justice League. But anyway, when they were talking about the decision to change it from her being a nobody to, oh no, what if she had like then a really dark past? Because if she's a nobody, it's not an active thing she has to grapple with. It's something from the past. Whereas this, her heritage is a very present day thing, and it's like much better for conflict, to which I say stupid. And number one. Number two, her heritage is very obviously a past thing. And it gives her the direction that then she thought she needed in order to have a place in this galaxy. She asks, I want someone to show me my place in all this. She doesn't have one, but now she does. And it's also just we're rehashing what we did with Luke. Oh, we have parentage that then is dark. Oh, what? Okay. But it's so... Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it's not quite as compelling when the person that is trying to persuade you, in this case it's Palpatine as opposed to Vader, like you have zero connection to this person, whereas Luke is like, I really care deeply about like trying to like make sure that my dad ain't gonna do the bad, whereas with Rey it's like, oh, the old man is telling her no, instead of digging your new home, your new life that you found based in these last two movies, what if you went a little crazy here? And she's like, wait a second. I might not want that. In the whole movie, she says, I might not want that. The struggle for her isn't, maybe I'm going to turn bad. Because there's no point in the movie where she's like really considering it. It's just like, oh, there's a slight temptation. It's always a metaphorical temptation. It's never anything physicalized. Yeah. So it's just this weird, awkward, like, oh, well.
She has a vision.
I think making the person calling her to the dark side a romantic interest makes it weird.
Right.
And not as interesting.
This is why subtext should stay subtext. But yeah, continue.
But yeah, because that's what, I mean, so I'm going to bring a bit of the shows into this.
Please.
And what I really like with Rebels is the main character, Ezra, is tempted a lot by the dark side by Darth Maul. And they do it in an interesting way because it's not that he's like bad, quote unquote. It's more that he doesn't think the Jedi are perfect and just wants to see all of his options before choosing a side, which I think is kind of cool. And I think with Rey kind of giving her those, like, these are the other roads you could walk down is interesting, but making one of those roads ultimately be a romantic thing, I feel like defeats the whole purpose of, like, exploring your morality.
Because it does. And the tugs to the dark that Rey has in this movie, what are they? In her first scene, she accidentally, like, hurts BB-8 a little bit. And then the other big thing is when she's doing the big trying to prevent what she thinks is Chewbacca's transport from going away, and then the Force lightning comes out, and she thinks that she just exploded Chewbacca to death, which isn't even something that she actually did, as we find out in 3 seconds. So there's no, like, if she was maybe grappling with that, because, look, I understand. I'm not saying kill Chewbacca. I think he's a very nice man, but it would have really helped the story if something crazy like that happened, because that was the first moment in the movie that was like, whoa, oh, okay, this is a risk. Interesting. Where are we going from here? And they even go so far as to have the characters talk about, well, we have to make sure that Chewie didn't die for nothing, and it's not your fault, Rey. You were trying to save him. And then they really start to get into this after we, the audience, have already seen the sequence showing he's okay. So at least if it's going to be a turn, have us find out later with the characters. I guess maybe they thought then we wouldn't be able to have fun on, like, the Spice Planet, if we thought that Chewbacca was really dead, but, like, oh no, a little bit of actual tension other than trying to find the Horcrux Infinity Stones.
Remember that time where, like, they had, like, a fake out death and then a fake out death and then just a very awkward introduction to the third actual death? And it's just like, wait, did that actually happen? And you don't really feel it.
Right.
But then, like, you move forward and the movie just doesn't cover it at all. It's just, it's a very unceremonious death of a main character. I see. Okay. So we're just going to move forward with that. Great.
We talking Kylo? Is that who you talking?
I'm talking Kylo. Sorry. Yeah.
I didn't know if you meant General Hux, my other favorite character.
I did realize that one midway. That's why I threw in main character.
Oh, well, he's a main character in my heart. But anyway.
Shut the heck.
That was a little rude. But yeah. So Palpatine. We don't understand how he came back. The closest we get to an explanation is he references the line from Revenge of the Sith, and it's like, the abilities some would consider to be unnatural, which comes from when he's talking about the tale of Darth Plagueis, which, if you're gonna tease that meme, just lean all the way into that meme. It's like they did it to be like, oh, well, for the fans that really care about it, we'll throw in just one line so then they could make up all these theories about how maybe Palpatine came back as an explanation. It's just assuming that any casual fan seeing this movie will just be like, oh, okay, I guess Palpatine's back. I'm not going to ask any follow-up questions because it was in the opening crawl. And the opening crawl is always right. So I guess we'll just go along with it then.
It's canon? I get confused sometimes.
Well, sometimes we go back on what's canon and what isn't. So you have to know. If they say no, never mind, then you go, oh, okay, never mind then, right?
Oh, okay, it's McClunky now. Gotcha.
It's McClunky now, of course. Yeah. Well, that was always there in my heart. So I'm glad it's So yeah, Palpatine is just. It's weird because another thing J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio said about this line is, when it popped up in Revenge of the Sith, it was like this dangling thread. It was like this gift that George Lucas gave to us, which was a way that we could get Palpatine to come back to life. But it wasn't, though. It was Palpatine being like, oh, maybe there's a thing about how you bring people back from the dead, Anakin. You should join me because you're scared about Padme dying. And then as soon as Anakin joins him, he's like, no one's really figured it out, though, but maybe if we work together, we could do it, maybe. We're actually never going to talk about this again. So, that's also moot, but whatever. Stupid. Yeah. I guess the one... I'll give them this. The one aspect that's interesting about making Rey a Palpatine, which I hate and think is terrible, and she should have been a nobody, and enough of the bloodlines... But the one thing that's interesting, and they don't even take full advantage of this, is the idea that they're the descendants of Darth Vader and the Emperor. That's cool, but also it points out the problem that the son of Darth Vader was a lot more important than the child of Palpatine, who I guess just Palpatine didn't care about having ascend the throne of the Sith, I guess? Question mark? I'm very confused about that.
Which thing again?
Why Palpatine doesn't care about his direct, child and instead is all about his granddaughter.
Yeah, I thought it was like
maybe I mean, that's a whole story. Like, maybe
very much in the movie, but like, what was the explanation for that?
What was the explanation for it? There wasn't one. It's they're
no. I just thought there was one, and I wasn't paying attention.
Well, what Kylo
you missed things this time, right? Like it happens.
Yeah.
No, but in this case, like you have to assume that like either they weren't force sensitive enough, and Palpatine was like, I'll wait for the next one, and then
it's a recessive gene.
Yeah. These kids did resist his temptations, and he already failed. Right. But for some reason, this is the one that ends in him dying. Like it just so happens to be different this time. Like maybe he put trust in just a few different people. No, but it's. Or maybe he was killed in Revenge of the Sith recently. Who knows? Who knows? The movie doesn't care to tell us, so why should we care?
Or is this meant to be the original? Like, have you heard the theory? They talk about this on Half in the Bag. Yeah, that this is the only real Palpatine, and that he's like had clones that he sent out into the world. But this is actually Palpatine.
I hate that so much.
I'm saying Return of the Jedi is a clone. Yeah.
Yeah. So in Return of the Jedi, when Darth Vader threw him over the thing, he was a clone. Is what we're saying. Who we've always seen.
Also had the wrinkled faces.
Yeah, who also had the wrinkled face after the lightning. But I guess our Palpatine in this movie has it just because he got really old. He's an ancient guy, so it just happens.
Oh, I get it now. Okay.
Airtight explanation. No, it makes no sense.
Thanks, JJ.
Thanks, JJ. Whatever. It's stupid. There's so many switcheroos and things that come out of nowhere from what The Last Jedi was trying to do, and there's.
So I was going to say the next thing. So we've covered, I think, Rey, Kylo, the Jedi side of this story pretty well. What do we think of our other space friends used in this story?
Our other space friends,
other characters.
Yeah, I know, right?
They just stuck some faces on rooms, waved them around, and made them give sick one-liners.
They were on screen during the A-plot. They were with Rey. They're like, they're human baggage, is what they are.
There's that one guy who had had something to say to Rey before he died, but he didn't die, and he didn't actually have a thing to say. I guess.
Which guy are you talking about?
We're talking about Finn and his
he was planning to say to her that he was force sensitive.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So
that's something you say right before you die. Rey, before I die, I need to tell you something.
It's the Star Wars equivalent of saying that you've taken up jujitsu. It's like, all right, I guess this is what I'll say to you before I die, presumably. It's really weird. JJ apparently said this to there's no recording of him saying it. I think he also said it in some circular way of like, oh, well, it means what you think it means. What I think it means is this, but maybe you think something else. So, who even knows? I think John Boyega alluded to it in an Instagram reply.
He said that he wasn't going to say I love you.
That's what's confirmed.
That's God.
For some reason, JJ's the only one who doesn't assume that.
Yeah. It's because it's.
But he's going to act as though everyone can have their own special interpretation.
It's such the cliche like how they must have known that that's what people would think, which is fine if then you're going to subvert it at the end and be like, oh, like just have him say that then he was going to say he was force sensitive. Why is that something open-ended? Like that's not an interesting thing to leave open-ended. That just seems like you made a mistake in your movie and you left it out. What? I don't get it. Blue Jay is saying, I think they were making the point that anyone could be force sensitive like Finn, and the girl who rode the weird horse creatures, Janna, and the broom boy from the end of Last Jedi. No, I like that. I of course like that.
I like it when it's thematically relevant.
I like it when it's,
like in a different movie.
Like in a different movie. Which, by the way,
that Boyega retweeted someone saying he was going to say, I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating and it gets everywhere.
Well, yeah, Anakin's old lightsaber has now been buried in sand, which I'm sure he's happy about from the afterlife.
Oh, dang.
Yeah,
the lore runs deep.
Yeah, it's also she takes Luke and Leia's lightsabers and puts them into Luke's childhood home that Leia I don't think ever even visited. So okay, Because she probably doesn't know that they were separated at birth, because I don't think she knows them very well. But whatever. I guess she should take up the name, but yeah. Anyway, so many different things that then they went back on. Oh
my god, John Boyega's cover photo on Twitter is Finn and Poe like together. I don't understand. Literally, I learned at this point it was weirder that they didn't kiss.
It was so weird.
It was like they spend the entire film together. They flirt with each other. They get jealous when the other one likes someone else.
It's the only beat that you feel like they have, because otherwise they're like the human equivalent of window dressing. Like, they're not in their own plots, so then people think, oh, well, it's better. They're more important now because they're along for the A-plot. But they're just there. They're just there, and they occasionally banter to each other back and forth in the background. And by the way, part of why I really liked these characters when we were introduced to them in The Force Awakens is that they seem to really like each other and care about each other. And in this movie, what they're doing 90% of the time is arguing with each other and saying really mean things. And it made me sad. Yeah.
Like, if they did admit at the end that they loved each other, that would make more sense why they were arguing with each other.
But, yeah. I don't get you two. You have, like, the original trilogy when Han and Leia would always argue with each other, and clearly they loved each other.
Right.
So, guys, come on. Clearly, everyone in the main crew here is super in love with each other.
I would be all for that, honestly.
Just bickering turns into smooching.
They just at the end, the group hug of the three of them, they just all kiss each other. I think that would have been good.
Yes.
No, but like, yeah. What were you gonna say?
How should I just harp on the no Rose thing?
Oh, this is a perfect time to mention it. Yeah.
Yeah. As we bring up each character individually, we'll bring up Rose for as long as she was in the movie. Okay, 5 minutes on the clock. And
5 minutes?
Oh, no, it was a minute and 46 seconds.
Yeah, someone did the calculations. They went in with a stopwatch, I guess. Yeah. Which is less screen time than Paige Tico, who's her sister, that died in the first scene of The Last Jedi had in The Last Jedi, apparently. So there's that. Yeah. So, yeah, everyone's saying she got Jar Jar'd, which is the Star Wars way of saying people didn't like the character in the previous entries.
Yeah, but with Jar Jar,
better than Jar Jar.
Racist about it.
Well, there's that. There's also she gets to do more than Jar Jar did in Revenge of the Sith, I guess. So there's that. It's just really upsetting because like she kind of sacrificed herself to save Finn's life, and then it looked like she also went in a coma right before kissing him, and then they just like never talked about it even. It's like, I guess we're never gonna, I'll pat you on the back and just say goodbye. Talk to you some other time, person that I have no affection for.
I'm so upset how she just got thrown to the side in this one. Because I thought there was a lot of opportunity for her to kind of like be a leader, especially because Poe and Finn were not there and Leia died. So it's like, okay, now Rose can be in charge and deal with that. And then nope.
Another woman in charge?
Oh, no.
You're going to throw that into the internet? You're going to accept the consequences of that?
No, truly. I will say, I noticed rewatching Last Jedi, there are so many female extras, and in this one, there's like none.
But didn't you see the two in the background that were kissing each other? That was a real win for representation.
Oh yeah, the one that they're cutting when they put over in Singapore.
Well, but of course they have to do that.
But the movies don't get good ratings there, right?
Yeah, no, they don't.
Yeah, that's right. Why were they even bothering to cut it out? And you blink and you miss it.
Please see it, please. There's no lesbian kiss. Please, you'll love it. Yeah, it's weird.
They're not gonna. China gives like the worst box office because they didn't have the original trilogy, so.
Right.
No hype fuel there.
And they were kind of interested in Force Awakens, but it's just been waning since then. So, yeah, whatever.
Yes, exactly. So at this point, why try to please?
Why is there not?
But here we have all the nostalgia in the world to power franchises for decades.
Of course,
Star Wars will never end.
Thank
Ever.
the Lord for that.
Oh God.
No,
please.
Follow up on the strands from Last Jedi. Why are we not seeing Finn and Rose being like recruiting other stormtroopers that would maybe turn? Why isn't
literally the fact that Finn has never showed converting stormtroopers is mind-boggling.
And they had it right. They had it in the palm of their hand with Janna. Have him do that with her, and that's how she's in the movie. Instead of it happened in the past, she explains it in a really rushed minute, and then they're like instant best friends, potential new love interest, but then that doesn't happen. It's weird. It's like, all right, well, we got, okay, Poe can have Zori Bliss, and Finn can have Janna, and don't worry, they don't like each other. They like girls. Don't worry. Keep it.
That's my favorite part is they do that, and then neither of them end up with those girl characters.
Yeah, they don't, and it's really weird because it's like, especially with Janna, it's like they were trying to make Finn 2.0. Like, okay, it's another stormtrooper that also then they felt something in the Force that compelled them to stop fighting and firing on civilians, and also she's black because we got a interracial. We don't want to have that in Star Wars, I guess. So we'll just throw that in.
Bring it back to basics, guys. Come on.
Bring it back to what made the original trilogy so pure, I guess. But yeah, all right. So then there's that. There are other things that are.
Do you think that the Poe relationship didn't happen because Oscar was just very specific about, will not kiss a girl on screen, give me the real relationship? There's so many interviews where he's like really salty about Finn Poe not happening, and like I'm so impressed by
really mad about it.
Oh yeah,
he is open about that. It's wild.
Like he's asked about like where do we like. The best is the press conference when they ask, where do we see Finn and Poe at the start of Rise of Skywalker? And he goes like, in bed. They're in bed together. Like he was so upset. And I think you're right, Justin. I have the same instinct that they just wouldn't set him up nor John Boyega up with another love interest because like, well, if it can't happen, then I don't want something else to overwrite it as well. So at least just then be non-committal about it. Sure. No, if they have their big climactic like end of Act 2 squabble with like, well, I'm not Leia, and Finn goes, that's for damn sure, which even though she hasn't died yet, like in the actual movie, it's really kind of an upsetting thing for them to say to each other, and it was like the most hateful thing in a series of many arguments, and it made me sad. But at least then they were seeming to be on the road to recovery when like Poe was like, oh, then I need I need you to join in this thing I'm doing, and Finn's like, oh, like he like stops himself and is like, I respect that, thank you, and general, it's cute. Why don't they? Whatever. It just was never gonna happen. I guess it was just never gonna happen. Dumb.
Welcome to Blockbusters.
So, other switcheroos from Last Jedi. This one tracks in terms of what the arc was. When Luke catches the lightsaber, when Rey throws it on the island, and it's like, oh, this is a weapon that should be treated with respect. Like, that is his arc, so I don't think it's a reversal of it just to be like, oh, well, like J.J. Abrams even said, like, it's not to, like, be saying Last Jedi's bad, it's because this is where Luke came to in terms of a conclusion. But you know that people from Reddit are going to look at that and be like, oh, see, they made it right now. That's how Luke should be.
I'm so angry because, like, very clearly it's just paying off Luke's arc from the last movie.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree.
Like, they just assume that since they didn't like Luke in the last movie, they just think of how he started in the movie as how he was throughout the entire movie. So they kind of just erase the part where, like, oh, by the end of Last Jedi, that is something he would do and say, and it's payoff. But no. We are erasing the past, destroy it, forget it, whatever. If you have to,
let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
Kill it if you have to. Sorry. Okay. Yes.
And that's how he says it too. Come on.
And also, everyone thinks that's like the take. That's supposed to be the Last Jedi takeaway. When like, no, he's not entirely right. No side is perfect. absolutely right on that.
He's the bad guy.
Oh my God, Justin, it's so funny you say that because Brian and I had this exact conversation like either earlier today or yesterday.
It was today. We were talking about, everyone says Last Jedi is all about let the past die, which yes, the movie doesn't like rely on Star Wars tropes and is going in a fresh, different direction. But also, it's what the villain's ideology was, and a movie is not defined by the antagonist's ideology, unless it's the Joker, I guess. Anyway, Luke, him lifting the X-wing finally after the paying off Empire. You hear Yoda say, "I like that. That's nice." The thing is, if we're talking about paying off, sorry, were you going to say something, Justin?
No, I'm just agreeing. Yeah.
If we're talking about paying off Luke's arc from Last Jedi, which so brilliantly was he is resistant to, and then I became a legend, Luke Skywalker, and how harmful that could be and how unrealistic it is, and what, you think I'm just going to come out with a laser sword and take down the whole First Order? And that's exactly what he does, and he like submits himself to then being this legend that can inspire hope in a way that something that is anything less than a legend wouldn't be able to amount to. It's a fascinating story, and it's perfectly capped off with the stuff with the kids, then telling the story and playing with the toy. It's perfect, and so in the spirit of what Star Wars meant to so many people that was spread through merchandise. And this movie doesn't do anything with that. It does not even reference the fact that Luke did this on Crate. The one reference to Battle of Crate is Poe saying, "Oh yeah, well, when we had the Battle of Crate, none of our allies showed up." We should be tracking people hearing the story, or see Lando going and spreading the news of this legend, something, so that when the ships all arrive in the climax of these allies that are just people, it comes from somewhere. But no, it's just they're here. They're here. Who are they? I don't know. I don't know why.
Everyone in the universe is here to just take down the vague First Order, and we don't really have like a good after.
No, Justin, not the First Order, the Last Order.
Oh damn it! I forgot.
I actually forgot about that.
That's when I started laughing really hard in the theater and just never stopped.
Yeah.
But it's like in the first, in New Hope, you get like a good sense of like, okay, this is what the Imperial life is like.
Right.
But you never really get that in this new trilogy. So I never get a sense of like, is it the exact same situation as they found themselves in the original trilogy? Is it like just a new thing starting up, like a new order? But like I don't know if like people are like really being like I don't know whose lives are being ruined in the same way as I did in the original trilogy. So I don't know what's the common person's life like, and is it bad enough that they would be risking their life in this kind of situation?
For all we know, yeah.
Well, you should watch Rebels then, because it solves your thesis for you.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's fair. Totally fair.
It's a great show. I love it, and it was. I mean, the one point this movie gets is that quite a few characters from Clone Wars and Rebels talk to Rey, telling her that they're the Jedi and they are with her.
Right,
which I liked.
Ahsoka being in it. It's really, that is cool that they did that. I think that's.
I was very happy, and it was the only time I was like, "Oh, yay, my children!" And I hated that I recognized Hayden Christensen's voice, and I thought it was kind of cool that they threw Anakin in there.
Yeah.
But I really hate that I recognized his voice like immediately.
Good job. That's a superpower right there. But
I also recognized Kerry Russell's eyes the second I saw them.
That's impressive.
That's Kerry Russell.
What, do you watch a lot of Felicity or something? How do you recognize?
No, I don't know how I knew it was her. I didn't even know she was in the movie. She takes off her mask, and at this point, I'm like at peak tipsiness, and I was like, I leaned over to my mom, like, "That's Kerry Russell, right?" And she's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Oh my god, I knew it!" And I was so proud of myself.
Amazing. This is the thing. As far as we know, based on what they tell us in Rise of Skywalker, and this is like potentially the explanation that makes more sense based on what happened. When Leia sent out the distress signal to the Allies in the Battle of Crate, she was like, "Oh, people aren't coming, hope is lost." No, probably what actually happened is just the internet was bad and no one got it, because now they all come. Because it doesn't... Stupid. Just track that. They had it.
In a second, but I wanted one more thing I wanted to say. Is just the part where I really was just like, I know I keep saying I was laughing throughout the movie, but it was quite a progression. And I think around the point where I was officially like, all right, guys, let's stop, was Harrison Ford looking very dazed and confused. I think he was like, am I on a Marriage Story? I don't know what's happening anymore. Just kind of stumbling onto the set and saying a bunch of nonsense to Kylo, and then Kylo being like, yeah, I'm good now.
Okay, so here's the thing. For me, the first time that the movie was really, because I was able, all right, fine, Palpatine made Snoke, the people on Reddit are happy, sure, I don't care where he came from, and this is a BS explanation, but sure, whatever. The first time I was like, was when they showed that Chewie wasn't really dead. And the first time I was like, oh no, was when they said, they were nobodies because they chose to be. You're a Palpatine. Then I was like, all right, my worst fears are realized. I wouldn't let myself believe it, even though Palpatine early on said like, oh, well, there's more to her story. I didn't even let that thought cross my mind because I was a fool that had faith that they wouldn't go that far.
I was positive the moment the line was right. I was like, damn it, this is just how it is.
So,
okay, take a chug.
All that said, the scene with Han is one of my favorite scenes in the movie, I think.
Oh my God, Brian!
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry to say that I lean more positively towards it. I was like, this broken up family is getting at least a little moment here.
This is the thing.
It's because post Leia, like I think the pieces were stacked right, and the performances were almost good. So like we're getting.
Here's the thing.
I think it was more just seeing his haggled form. I was like, all right, guys, we can stop this now.
Okay.
Let these poor actors live. Like, don't make them come on this set anymore. They don't want to be here.
But okay, so obviously what this should have, because the whole pitch to the actors was, all right, Force Awakens is Han's movie, Last Jedi is Luke's movie, and this was supposed to be Leia's movie. And Carrie Fisher was very excited about it being Leia's movie. And it can't really be Leia's movie, even though she is top billed, which is a nice gesture. So it can't be hers. The movie is begging for what's been built up over this whole trilogy is Ben and Leia finally having a face-to-face scene with each other.
Yeah.
And we really needed, especially in Last Jedi, when he senses her and he's going to pull the trigger and he doesn't on her. We can't get that. And before I go into Han, something I will give credit on, and obviously it's awkward sometimes, but given what they had to work with, the way that they put a lot of the Leia stuff is also some of my favorite stuff in the movie. And,
100%.
Okay, you agree with that? Yeah.
I loved how they used Leia. It was, I knew that they were, obviously had to cut around a few things, but the way they did use her, I thought was actually very smartly done.
I was surprised about how much they were able to do that made sense. I quite liked it.
100%. Like I recognize, because I have seen the Force Awakens deleted scenes, so like never underestimate a droid. I knew they had that in there, but they made that into like it becomes a callback line later, and then they the whole thing.
But then they never say it again after the we're by the halfway mark. You never hear it again.
We said it twice. It can still be on a T-shirt. So yeah, they have that.
I thought it was gonna be like a big thing in the climax or something. They said it so many times.
Well,
but it just teeters out after a while. It was really weird. But I guess Dio fills that role towards the end, sorta.
That's the thing.
I guess.
Okay, tangent on that real quick. Something no one's talking about that I think was actually really cute and cool is when Rey first does the healing of the serpent, and she's like, and she explains it to BB-8, and it's like, oh, I gave like life force to him. Oh, I know you would have done it if you could have. And then later when BB-8 sees Dio and like he does the little sparky things and brings Dio back to life, and then BB-8 goes over to Rey as if to say like, look, see, I did it. I thought that was great.
That's the smartest moment in the entire movie, and no one noticed.
I did. I noticed.
No one human noticed.
I thought that was really sweet. It was really nice.
And I agree, and I'm just going to assume that Jane agrees.
Yeah.
Yes.
Never underestimate a droid. Yeah.
But like, no, that's an awesome moment that I would never think of.
Yeah.
If you didn't mention it. And there's nothing that's even comparable in the rest of the movie to that moment. Congratulations.
I'm glad I mentioned it then. Yeah.
So I'm gonna be tapping out, but what I will say to everyone listening, I know If you like, if the element of you like of these movies is getting into a little bit of explaining the Jedi and everything, while also exploring the people and how all these cogs work together,
it's on your
Clone
SoundCloud.
Wars, watch Rebels. They are great shows, and they are the only things I will now retreat into. Star Wars, you've burned me.
Oh, I'm like on Mustafar. All right. That's a nice SoundCloud plug. Very good. All right, take it. Do you want? Is there any? If people wanted to find you, oh, you left already. All right. Well. Oh well. It's just some mystical.
It's still plugger.
It's I can, but it's a private account. So I mean so we'll see. If she wants if she wants to plug herself, then come in the chat and say something. Well, whatever. This is the thing.
Yeah, like a chat replay and all that good YouTube stuff. Yeah.
She wasn't a Force ghost. She was actually just a memory, like Han, right? Whoa.
Wow, man.
Where'd she go? Yeah. So okay, Leia. We were on Leia. When I think her line about always pulling the strings from above or something she says like that was talking about Snoke. I think in the Force Awakens deleted scene, interspersed perfectly. It's some grade A archival incorporation. As someone who's had to do it in the past for a little web series that we work on, I was like,
web series. I forgot that there's media outside of the theater.
And Jane has nothing to plug. Okay. Game recognized game. So the archive reincorporation was good. The only time it was a little they were good about having Leia look down at something in the map in the ancient tech, and then she looks down at it and is like, oh, then I have to go and do this. And then it was only in that scene where it was starting to get a little noticeable, mostly because because all Leia says is no. And then Rey's like, well, I would like your blessing, but if you can't give it to me, it's okay because I still have to go and do this because it's what you would do. Cut to Leia. And then end of scene. But if I didn't know, I wouldn't be thinking about it. And overall, not just the reincorporation of archival footage, but the spirit that they then do overarching, they make as significant as possible this moment of her reaching out through the Force to Kylo, and that this is what is then beginning to turn him and distract him, and then the moment in which Rey then stabs him briefly, and then this is when all her energy is used up. It's a pretty sweaty line from Maz Kanata to explain what she's doing, and you don't really understand how Maz would even know. Maz Kanata basically seems to be a character. It's specifically in Force Awakens and this movie. She's a character there to explain things and not be a character.
It's a character I really thought would be doing a lot in this trilogy, but then really only ended up being important in the first movie.
She had scenes cut out of Force Awakens too. It's every time they're oh, she has to be in it, but we don't really know how. Every time it seems but whatever. I think she's
with the Leia stuff. I'm very impressed in that when you have to do these workarounds with dialogue and whatnot, it forces you to get really creative. And as a result, not to spin this unfortunate circumstance into a positive, but it's some of the Leia scenes are the only some of the only scenes that feel like they are artistically put together in a very creative way, as opposed to the #epic, #1-minuters, #this goes on a t-shirt dialogue scenes.
Oh, totally agree.
So it's very bizarre that I've seen some people say that the scenes stand out in a bad way. I would say the opposite, but I get why some people might say it, because they do feel like they are written slightly differently. But in my opinion, they're written slightly differently in a way that would have benefited a lot of the rest of the movie.
Right. It's special attention was paid because they really wanted to pay respect, and they did, and they also paid off Leia being Force sensitive, and we see the flashback to the training with her and Luke, and that it's because she had, I guess, the vision that something bad would happen with her son, but then she renounced it, and that's why she didn't then continue on with it, which I'm a little confused on the timeline of, like, when she did because she was apparently, as we hear from Luke in Last Jedi, like, Han was Han about it, but Leia was supportive of having her kid trained by Luke, so I don't exactly know when that shifted, but still, that makes, it's like, okay, so she was powerful in the Force, she was trained to be a Jedi, and she set it aside for an understandable human reason. Like, cool, like, very respectful, dig this, and I'm surprised that they're able to, do as much with it as they can. Yeah, so I guess back to the Han scene, which now we don't really have to rebut someone saying it's bad because we both liked it, I guess.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, it's one of the very few times in the movie I let, like, some nostalgia lines pull a little bit. Part of it's the Leia stuff. Part of it is just Han being the best Star Wars character.
Well, yeah.
Han is the best of the original trilogy. Kylo's the best now. Bring them together, and you gotta get something decent out of it.
Right. And look, since they can't have that one-on-one scene that I was talking about between Leia and Ben, you need a scene like this. I think it's necessary. So
it feels like something was cut short, and unfortunately, it was in a meta sense.
Right.
But, like, the movie did allow that feeling to resonate with its audiences. So when you get that scene between Kylo and Han, as opposed to Kylo and Leia, like, you feel the empty space that just lingers there, and, like, the fact that both of them are upset about the current situation, you could actually legitimately feel that. I do think that Ford did a better job than Jane made it out to be. But, like,
I agree. I mean, you could say, like, his hair is blowing everywhere, but that's kind of a thing in Force Awakens also. But and he didn't shave for it, but that's fine. The thing is, it's a memory. He often didn't shave, so that's how Ben remembers him. But so, like, what I think is that the way that they did the scene and the fact that they acknowledged, like, at this point, Leia in the movie has actually passed on. And then this lets the characters and the actors talk about it. So it gets to invoke this tragic death in a meta sense within the text, which is also really warranted. So again, I think given what they had to work with, the best thing that they could have done. And that's not faint praise. I think they handled it well. And I liked calling it back to The Force Awakens. Yeah, you could say it's on the nose to then we're calling that dialogue, but Adam Driver sells it, and it's not gratuitous. I would have even gone so far in theory to have. No, I was gonna say, like, to make him into a Force ghost, but I like him being a memory much better, because even though he, like, believes in the Force existing, we've never seen any of his Force sensitivity, so it wouldn't really work. So this was really smart. I was hoping Harrison Ford would be in the movie. I assumed he probably would be, and this is the way to do it. If you ask me, anyways. But yeah, that's one of the better. It's funny. A lot of, like, the stuff of the original trio is amongst the best stuff. And Lando's also in the movie, but he doesn't get to do nearly enough because apparently they cut out some of his stuff. Because I think it's in, like, the visual dictionary that hints that, like, he had a daughter or a granddaughter that was, like, stolen away from him by the First Order, and, like, it's maybe supposed to be Janna, or, like, it's implied that Janna would be amongst that, and that's why they have that scene at the end of "Where are you from?" I don't know, but let's find out. But that's like the
that one really stuck out.
Right. That's like the vestiges of the deleted plot line, I guess. Because all that, the only other thing he has to do in this movie is be like, "Oh, my flying days are long behind me." Oh, the trailer begs to differ. So whatevs. It's really, this is a fun thing that I could do. So J.J. Abrams went back on so many different things that were in The Last Jedi, as we've been talking about. So I compiled a little list because it's also Christmas. So if you'll indulge me for a moment.
Love things, love lists.
Okay. On the 12th day of Christmas, J.J. Abrams said to me, Snoke was made by Palpy. Rose is not in the story. Finn won't talk about the kiss. Kylo fixed his helmet. Luke loves his saber. The saber was fixed. Holdo's not world picking now. Allies show up. Rey does real training. Luke on Crate doesn't matter. Not nearly enough porgs. And Rey is a Palpatine.
I love all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Most notably, not enough porgs. That's the big retcon. I needed 12, all right? So yeah.
No, Ryan, that was fantastic.
Thank you. It was. Yeah.
It was fantastic.
So that's the other thing. Like we talked about a good amount of those, but the Luke / Anakin, the saber being fixed, the one that was famously split in The Last Jedi. Apparently, I think also in the visual dictionary we see a picture of Rey like fixing it. So I guess that's from a deleted scene. I guess we don't even see how that happened. Yeah, Blue Jay. I was not going to sing the entire 12 verses. I'm cutting to the chase. Don't worry. Yeah, Holdo not being world.
I don't want to get build up. I just want to see the big action that went on forever.
Wow, it's just like Mr. J.J. Abrams is in the room.
I just want, yeah. I don't mean to sound super sour on this movie, but ...
Yeah.
There's so much in the movie that like it's rare that I'm just like thinking, is it over? Yes.
I get sleepy. Which is terrible.
I went with someone to see the movie who was like a super fan, and he like checked his watch a few times. I was with a group, but like there's just
I did,
one person in particular that like like checked his watch a few times. I was like, yikes.
Right. I went with this. I went with a super fan, and immediately after, no one that I went with in my party liked it, which included Mr. Adam Katz, if anyone is aware of who that is. This feeling. But after it was over, even the super fan was like, that really disappointed me. I'll have to see it again at some point to really come to terms with how I feel about it. But
you do not have to see it again, Adam.
No, that wasn't Adam.
Oh, sorry. I missed something.
No, Adam didn't. Adam was just like, "Oh, that wasn't good." It's like he's not gonna see it again. They gave these free posters. The super fan didn't get one, and he was trying to go get. And Adam had one. He was like, "Just take it. I don't want this." Just gave it to him after the movie. Yeah, but not a big fan. One of my favorite parts of the movie is when I recognized Mark Hamill's voice as a random alien creature. Did you recognize him? He did that in Last Jedi too.
What random alien creature?
So in the beginning of the movie, when they get the spy intel and they're like, "What do we need to give you for this?" and he goes, "Win the war." It sounds like a little jokery. That's Mark Hamill, yeah. And I think he even did it under a pseudonym or something, but it's definitely him. Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Well, now we're gonna rewatch the movie just for that. Yeah. Then I will walk out immediately after. What's that, like 15 minutes in?
It's weird, yeah. It's something like that. It's weird that, to my knowledge, in Force Awakens, like he does this in Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. He has a little like cameo as some other alien. But in Force Awakens, the movie in which he otherwise says nothing, he doesn't. That would be the one I would think maybe you throw him in there, but whatever. Sure. Mark Hamill voice acting on a large scale, I'll always support. So there's that. We talked about Kylo's stupid helmet and the Knights of Ren. Captain Phasma didn't come back. Captain Phasma, Justin.
I could say that I'm disappointed just based on the fact that it would be so hilarious.
It would be.
If she came back a third time, and just really complete the trilogy.
Yeah.
But also, I want that for the meme-ishness of it.
Oh, of course.
But no other reason. I don't care. I don't care at all. She's just replaced by other boring characters that they just throw in there with cool designs.
Have you seen, we've talked about this, I don't know if you've seen it since, the deleted scene that they had of their final confrontation between Finn and Captain Phasma in The Last Jedi.
You explained it to me.
Right. if they took some of those elements and put them in this movie, of it being like, which for anyone who hasn't seen it,
you mean so you could complete one of the characters' arcs and make sure they span all 3 movies? Wow, imagine.
Yeah, bro. If you took it and had this whole thing, because it was all about like Phasma being like, "Oh, you suck, Finn," and Finn's like, "Well, like you think I don't have convictions and values? What about you? When we were gonna put you, we captured you, and you gave us that sweet intel in Force Awakens, huh? It looks like you don't really hold to your beliefs. I guess you don't really have any, do you? That's what makes me better than you." And then she's like, "Arg." And it shows, like, it furthers Finn's arc and gives Phasma a purpose. And it probably should have been in Last Jedi. Maybe there was just too much going on because we're intercutting with, like, the Snoke Kylo Rey part. But then put it in this movie. So then Finn can do something in the movie other than yell Rey and try to tell her that he has the Forcey Force, but never actually get to say it. That's just my take.
It's just so confusing where I just don't get the angles with most of these characters. they just want to make them look cool, but like,
yeah.
I don't know. I said it earlier, we kind of just got spoiled by Rian Johnson, huh?
I guess we did.
Okay, I say that, but Force Awakens does establish these characters well. Like, you know, Rey's story in Force Awakens of like waiting for Fam to come home, like, you know, that's done well, and Finn's you know, needing to assert himself and in his outlook on life, that's done well.
Yeah,
like arcs can be done well in this trilogy by a JJ.
They can be.
Can be, yeah, like. So I don't know where they wanted to go with this.
Well, what people say is that JJ's good at setting up the mysteries and the mystery boxes, but in terms of actually concluding things, like with Lost and all that, and like people like his first Star Trek movie, but not Into Darkness. So then,
I would say the same.
Right.
But in this case, I'm gonna slightly disagree, just in the sense that like in Force Awakens, arcs were complete, but like okay. Complete in the sense of like, you know, this is a good first version of the arc that could be, you know, elaborated on in future installments. But you still feel like a character has grown and changed from point A to point B throughout the movie.
Certainly.
In this movie, it's not really following much through. There's not really any setup of like, you get it with Rey at best. When like at the start of the movie, well, you have the in your face, what's your family name, Rey? And Rey goes, well, I don't know. I hope I find out in 5 minutes.
He would be honored to know your family name. Yeah, whatever. And it's literally the scene from Ice Age: The Meltdown when Manny's telling. It's literally the scene in which Manny is telling the story about a big happy family to these kids, and one of the kids goes, "So where's your big happy family?" Manny's like, and it's like, this is what the movie will be about, kids. But it's handled better in Ice Age. Yeah, she
would respond, "This is my family," and we all go, "Oh, what a good character Rey is."
Well,
but
what
instead,
she said, yeah,
we set up for her to be a Palpatine, which is way worse than being a nobody.
Well, what she says in that scene is just Rey, but she says it with like hesitation and a hint of sadness. The thing is, what the end of this movie should have been, amidst all of the other issues that are plaguing it, what should have happened at the very end, when Miss Old Lady walks over and is like, "People haven't been here in forever. Who are you?" "I'm Rey." "Rey who?" "Just Rey." Just Rey.
Yeah, I'm cool with it. I'm fine with her taking on the Skywalker.
I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with it. I just don't like that. That's where the movie ended, location wise, because it's like, oh, I guess she completed Luke's character journey and not her own. Like,
well, because we honored their legacy. She just buried the lightsabers of Luke and Leia, forged her own, and now is saying, "Well, I'm a Skywalker." No, you let it rest, and now you're you. And you can even look to Force Ghost Luke and Leia as you say this, and it'll be even more touching that then they see you accept. Because Leia, in her parting words to Rey, is never be afraid of who you are or ashamed of who you are. And now they see that she's not doing that. So,
counter, people in real life do change their names to something that's more meaningful to them, things that feel better.
And also, it could be about caring that.
Okay, I guess the way I would put it is, I don't think there's any issue with her taking on the Skywalker name if that's a thing that makes her feel better in her day-to-day life.
Sure.
Because it is something that must mean a lot to her, because the Skywalker ideology is what really ultimately changed her
and it
forever.
Keeps the name alive, and it's in a positive light. Yeah.
Something, the best you get in terms of Rey really figuring out, oh, I'm Rey, I am who I am, and I make my own decisions, is seeing that she has her own lightsaber color.
Yeah.
That's the closest we really get to really show that off in the reflection part of the movie at the end.
But she used part of her staff, I think, to make it, which was a nice idea. But you can.
I would just like something a bit more there, because that didn't leave any impact on me. The Skywalker thing stands out a lot more, and that's not a thing of that. Yeah, gotcha.
Certainly.
But what were we saying before that? We were talking about the scene. There's definitely something I want to say in regards to the scene where we introduce this concept of Rey not knowing what she's going to be doing. I'm going to skip that, because before I do anything else, I just need to talk about Kylo's death. We just got to talk.
Okay.
We can get back to Rey. Before this ends at some point, I just need to talk Kylo. Can we talk Kylo?
Let's talk Kylo. Go ahead, Justin.
So we talked about the kiss earlier, and feel how you will about that, because I'm more of in a place where it's like, it happened, I expected it to happen, and then we move forward.
Darth Vader and the Emperor's grandkids, ooh, they smooching. Yeah, okay.
It's you get one. Someone leaned over to me. I was like, it's symbolic.
No, Justin. The thing, go ahead. Why is it symbolic?
It's just symbolic because they had that weird history together, the family lineages.
When you put it that way, I like it the best.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, that makes sense.
Yeah,
but like immediately after, he's dead now.
Well, he just got so excited that he died. He had a heart attack.
Well, and then that's the Steven Universe logic of a gem could dissipate their form if they get too excited.
It's the first time he ever smiled in his entire life. His body was like, can't handle it, shutting down.
But it's such a weird, unceremonious death where it's like, oh, he's dead now? ? And no one talks about it after that. And
it seems like a re-edit, honestly. Like they just literally dissolved him out, and that was it.
It was just in a practical sense, it felt awkward, but it's also just a weirdness to me of like, why does someone have? I know it's been done before. We kind of talked about this earlier, before this live stream.
Oh yeah. No, say this. This is really good.
But like, why do we have to go through this thing of like, oh, to really redeem yourself, you gotta die. Like, if Han's gonna tell him, that he still has time to grow and to change, and it's never too late to go back, why do you need to send the message of, well, you can go back and make up for the bad things. You're gonna die for it, but it's never too late. You could say that it's a sacrifice, and that's what makes his redemption all the more valuable. But why not be able to illustrate what it means to actually become a better person and be able to live your life as a better person and bettering society as a result of it? Death is just an easy way out of showing a redemption arc. It just feels so unfulfilled, so awkward. And yeah, I'll say that there's the bias involved for me of Kylo's the most interesting new character to me, but like, I think that goes for a lot of people. Like, you make an entertaining character, you don't really want them to just die just for being good. Like, you do it with Vader, But I guess we got to do it again because it's the Star Wars way.
And that's the thing. Because you have it with Vader, and obviously you're then assuming, oh, then we're just going to take what this overarching arc was and do it in the trilogy. Which, even Force Awakens, for all the flack it gets for being New Hope, it's the New Hope skeleton of, like, there's a droid that delivers a message, and then they meet Han Solo, and they go over here. But, like, it doesn't get enough credit for all the new character arcs that are, like, grafted onto it, right?
Each character has their own unique story in there, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So you got that going for it. And then, but what you should have done is have it be Kylo, like, is going to try to do his heroic sacrifice thing. And the way, like, all right, I was trying to emulate my grandfather's dark side before. Now I'm going to emulate his big heroic sacrifice. And then have that be, I'm just literally figuring this out right now. Have that be when you bring in Rey being able to, like, give life force and bring him back. And he's like, what? And it's like, yeah, I mean, cool that you did the heroic sacrifice, but part of the redemption is then you have to, like, own up to, like, the chaos that then you've created, and then see if then there's a way to dig out of this hole. And yeah, it's gonna be work, and it's gonna be a process. It's not gonna be this one big miraculous magical thing that then you just do and then you go away forever. And it's as simple as that. No, it's a work in progress. Then do that, right? Like, what? Yeah. No.
It's quite the irritating twist. We talked about this as well, but I was expecting a twist to happen around that point in the movie because we were in a call with Taylor at a point,
who's about to join momentarily, by the way.
Fantastic. So this is his lead-in.
Good.
And he was letting me know that, like, well, he was mentioning to you that he very much didn't like a twist that happened at the end of the movie.
Yes.
And come the point of, like, we defeated Palpatine.
What's the difference?
I was like, wow, it's been a while since there's been a twist, and we're hitting the end of the movie. I don't think anything else would be considered end of the movie twist.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kylo died. I was like, oh, damn it. I hate this.
Yeah.
So I was looking for like, ooh, when's it gonna come? I'm like, okay, it's come. And I thought it wasn't. By the time I found early in the movie, I was like, oh, I guess Rey's a Palpatine. The moment Palpatine said, oh, there's more to her story, I was like, dang, okay, great. I didn't think I was gonna be any more disappointed, but I was wrong.
Yeah, and the reason you brought up Taylor is because Taylor, he said that before you saw it, and then it came up, and yeah. So I'll patch in Taylor, and while I'm doing that, I'll also say, just because I'm not sure, like, I don't know where Taylor's at on Mandalorian. Did you finish the most recent episode?
Yeah.
Okay, so you saw the tie-in.
I think tomorrow, so let's get hyped.
Let's get hyped. So that, yeah, there's the tie-in of Baby Yoda doing the Force revival stuff, which literally it came out the day before. So since we saw the little baby boy do it, it is okay. So it is fine if girl does it. It is fine. New Force power, but it's okay.
I heard it was also, this is just me hearing it, I heard it was in, like, extended lore stuff, but I'm not sure if it was anything that was undone by new canon.
I know Force projection was. Force projection was, and Rian Johnson, like, pointed to the book in which it was before Last Jedi happened. But I don't know about, it could be. But
some video game, I believe, had it as well.
Oh, cool. Okay. But yeah, so it's just crazy how that lined up so closely. But yeah, all right. Taylor, I think, should be about to be patched in. So we'll get to see. Here's a whole new perspective. Yes, Taylor is coming. I know in the chat there were people who were talking about, I think, what was it, Mama Fox 9 that was saying, oh, I thought Taylor was supposed to be coming. Yeah, but now it seems like he might in fact come if he answers the call. But he despite the fact he messaged me, it seems like he hasn't answered it yet. His computer has many technical difficulties, so that could be it as well.
Did someone say Robo Taylor returns?
Robo Taylor returns.
It's the reunion special I've been waiting for. Let's talk about nostalgia, please.
Yeah, am I right? But yeah, all right. So we got. We'll get on some other things as we wait for the legend that is Taylor. All the ships have Death Star power. It's just 1 million Death Stars. Didn't you feel the weight of that, Justin?
No.
So even when we saw the Starkiller base like blow up all those planets, and like you kind of don't, even J.J. Abrams admits like, yeah, you kind of don't really feel anything, because originally we were tracking this plot of like Leia sent someone to go over to that planet, and you kind of knew that character. You see, it's like a close up on this one woman. If you go in the Force Awakens deleted scenes, you could see, but they decided that they needed to save Leia's reveal for later in the movie when Han sees her for the first time, and that's why we have a lot of Leia archival footage we're able to use in this movie. But I still felt way more for that than I do when they say, oh, then they all can blow up planets, I guess. And then they blow up the one planet that we went to in this movie, but the two characters that we met on it, Zori Bliss and Babu Frick, who's the other MVP, are okay. So it's like, all right, well, no harm, no foul, I guess. They're fine.
I also wasn't sure what the planet was at the time. But now. So
well, there you go, Justin. It's supposed to be a surprise when she comes up. You see? Thank goodness.
Just like Chewie and just like C-3PO's memory, everyone is safe except for the one character who's not safe.
Yeah, that's right.
Welcome.
Is Taylor introducing Taylor Groden?
Oh my goodness, Star Wars entrepreneur.
All right, so Taylor, the audience doesn't have any idea what you thought of this new film, the conclusion of the Skywalker saga. So please come at it with whatever angle you wish. Go right ahead.
It's so just for the record, I just finished watching The Last Jedi with a few friends because we're going to see Rise of Skywalker again tomorrow.
The best one.
So the best one, yeah. And of course, I'm like, obviously, like I just watched The Last Jedi, so I'm like sitting back and I'm like, I'm really starting to see a lot of the holes in that one, and it makes me like The Rise of Skywalker a lot more, even though obviously I'm seeing it tomorrow. But my overall consensus is that I did enjoy Rise of Skywalker when I walked out of it. Like, I was very much just kind of like, whoa, all of that just happened really fast, and it there was a lot of good in it, and there were just a few things that kind of threw me off and that I didn't really like. But overall, like, I felt like it had a few conclusions that I really liked, and a few where I was like, could have been a little stronger.
All right.
I know
that now we have some of the varying opinion. Excellent.
Well, yeah. So I know that there's been an overwhelming amount of hatred towards it online and in the reviews, which I think is funny because it's like the complete opposite of what The Last Jedi had. You know, we had for The Last Jedi, the reviewers were saying this is so good, and then the audience were like, no, this is terrible. And now it's the reverse for this one, where the reviewers are saying it's terrible and the audience is saying it's good. But then, you get the occasional, back and forth. But I definitely didn't have, so in comparison to, say, Brian, who's probably like one of the biggest Star Wars fans that I know.
That maybe, but definitely not one of the biggest out there. That's for sure.
Oh, no, not the biggest out there.
Yeah.
But I'm not like crazy into Star Wars.
Sure.
I enjoy it for the entertainment factor. I enjoy the stories for sure, and I enjoy the characters primarily. When they can give you an interesting character that has a lot going for them, I love it.
Right.
And I decided before The Rise of Skywalker to watch some of the earlier films, particularly 4, 5, and 6.
Sure.
Because I'd already watched 7 and 8 really recently. And there was a lot that I was, able to pick up on that I didn't before, just kind of like, because I was like extra paying attention now. And I was like, oh, this relates to that and this relates to that. And so when I was kind of watching the finale, to say so for Star Wars, I was kind of expecting a lot of like the things that we learned in all the episodes to kind of like come together into some kind of conglomerate of like,
sure.
Little piece of every story kind of comes together, but we're going to get a lot of the last two since this is part of that trilogy. And I remember that, at the end of The Last Jedi, it was all about, out with the old, in with the new, which was a very interesting message coming from like Rian Johnson. And then obviously it's handed back to J.J. Abrams, and J.J. Abrams is like, we'll take parts of that, and then we're also going to throw that away because they did the whole out with the old in a bit of an interesting way, where they're like, haha, let's fake kill 2 of the oldest characters, and but they'll come back though almost immediately. So just a little bit of fake out for you old watchers out there who love the original, and then.
How funny is it, by the way, that when Chewbacca is fake, like when he's taken away onto the ship and like Finn is seeing it happen, it's framed in a very similar way to when he sees Kylo taking Rey away in The Force Awakens. And it's just like, but like he can't. We totally feel his connection to Rey so much more than as he watches Chewbacca get taken onto the ship. And it was just funny to me that it was shot in like the same way and like shown it. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, and I remember like, it didn't help that I had obviously watched a few of the trailers before seeing the Rise of Skywalker. So when they did the fake Chewie kill, I kind of went, oh, wait a second. I'm pretty sure I saw him in footage in other places. So I was like, that's not the end of Chewie. So, J.J. Abrams trying to do a little fake out on me, but I'm like, I know what you got, JJ. And C-3PO, I thought it was going to kind of be, and I'm going to draw a parallel here, Brian, that maybe you're not going to like. Oh. Because this I think there was a memory wipe in another Disney media that happened that also did the same thing that annoyed me. Oh. Which was in Gravity Falls finale. Oh. Stan loses his memory.
Oh, yeah.
And then in an adult bus.
And then it just kind of comes back.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
And I've always kind of been on the side of, if there's a memory loss, if it is going to come back, it shouldn't just be all at once.
You have to work for it.
You have to, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was honestly more annoyed by the Gravity Falls one.
No, actually, well, yes, in the sense that the Gravity Falls one is an event that carries more importance, but also, on the other hand, I think it's, like, we spend more time wallowing in the tragedy of that until it is undone and it's rust. Like, love Gravity Falls, have issues with the finale, but that said, like, in this movie, we were talking about it before. This is one of the first things we said. Like, people were so primed to be upset about 3PO, like, sacrificing himself or losing his memory or whatever. And in the movie, it's just such a shrug. I want him and R2-D2 to do the end of WALL-E together, basically. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But immediately when the right before the memory loss happens, we get the line, oh, and R2 has his backups, not very reliable, but yes. So I'm just like, okay, well, that's what they're going to do. But then after that, like, and it pretty immediately turns into, let's joke about the memory loss. So, like, you're not supposed to feel the weight for it. Right. Ryan brought it up earlier that you have a great scene, at least at the start of it, where C3 doesn't remember R2, and, you feel a little bit of heartbreak there, but that, that only lasts 3.5 seconds, so.
And it's like the last time we see them, too. He's like, I'm about to go on my mission. Wait, I already did? And it's like, and that's it. That's it. Oh, wow.
It's rare that I feel weight in the movie, very so.
Well, I feel the weight of the runtime that's getting too long.
No, I agree there. Just all that action.
Yeah,
what's happening?
Where would you rank this, at least amongst the trilogy? Because for me, myself, I would say it's the weakest. I don't know how you guys feel.
Okay, so just the trilogy, because do not ask me to rank all of them, because I don't have enough to.
We'll be here all day
on all 9. Yeah, and we'll be here all day.
Yeah,
I think so. So we watched The Force Awakens a few days ago, and The Last Jedi today, and I'm obviously going to see the Rise of Skywalker again tomorrow. But I think before I go into this, what I think is funny is that everybody kind of has that thing where it's like, if within this trilogy, everyone likes at least sort of like 2, and then there's always one that kind of doesn't sit well with everybody, like primarily. So there's always 2 that more or less sit on the positive side,
That's
and then there's
true.
one stinker. But I think overall, everyone seems to really think that The Force Awakens is a pretty well-rounded movie that has, you know, all the pieces in the right place.
Right.
And after watching The Force Awakens the other day, I just had a lot more fun. You know, I had more of appreciation for it, and I really just enjoyed watching it. What I kind of do, especially when I rewatch movies, is I do add a category of rewatchability, because that's something that you can't really judge on the first time off, clearly.
Sure,
and
of course,
rewatching a movie is a wonderful experience that really helps me define if I like the movie or not. So, for example, my favorite movie of all time, Monsters, Inc., I will watch 1,000 times and will happily watch it another 1,000 times after that, because I just love it like that.
I would easily go as far as to say that Force Awakens is the most fun Star Wars movie. I think I think that's a pretty uncontroversial thing to say, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that of all of them, it does a really solid job of introducing our 3 new characters. Well, maybe you know, there's. I feel like in the beginning,
but I get you. Yeah.
I was going to say, you know, primarily with Finn and Rey, they get some really good introductions, and I really like what goes with them. Poe kind of like shows up and then disappears, and then when he comes back, it's like, oh yeah, I was ejected, and I forget if he says he was just like picked up or something.
He was supposed to die in the original version, actually, but then they decided.
Oh, so they didn't mean to make him make. Okay, well, you know, that actually kind of makes more sense. See, Brian, you have more facts kind of floating around and little trivia tidbits. But I think overall, because The Force Awakens is very well rounded, it's got some good introductions, it's got some good honors to some of the old characters. It leaves you with a note that with the, you know, the ending with Luke that wants you to, you know, leave wanting more, which is not something that a lot of films do. A lot of the Star Wars films do. A lot of Star Wars films end with kind of like, you know, there is hope. Everyone is together and we are safe. This film could have, or with The Force Awakens, it could have ended when they were all at the base. And they were like, we're all together and we're all fine. In classic Star Wars, you know, the circle wiped to black, and you know, we'd be fine. But it added that little extra thing to kind of kickstart the next story, which is that Rey went to go see Luke, and kind of just like, you know, he didn't have to say anything. There was that moment of her handing the lightsaber to him. Right. And, you know, there was all that buildup of, oh my gosh, like, you know, the 2 leads, you know, the old lead and the new lead, you know, cross paths and they meet each other. And I love the way that it ended. In terms of the actual middle, and I have to think to myself, you know, again, because I'm going to start jumbling up scenes in my head since I just watched so many Star Wars movies. Right. Trying to think about like the middle of The Force Awakens. We've got a lot of, you know, we've got a lot of Han and Chewie moments that I really liked. Yeah. I remember on the rewatch, I picked up a lot of the whole, every time Han picks up Chewie's gun, he's like, oh wow, I like this thing. Yeah. And like, it's just kind of like funny. It's like he's been carrying around this awesome weapon the whole time, and Han never considered it. I
like how he says he's cold, and then Chewie gives him the jacket later.
Yeah. And I love that. And you know, they have some great moments. I know that Han and Chewie's introduction is fun, but I remember that it goes into that tangent where it's like these 2 groups come in, and it's like,
tell that to Conja Club. Yeah.
Conja Club comes in.
One subject that just does lose me.
I'm softer on that than most people, but I totally get why it's like, oh yeah, this is the bathroom break scene, you know, like.
Yeah, that's perfect way to put it. Yeah. Which is that when that scene happens again, I remember I sit back and I'm like, okay, I get that Han's like a smuggler. Yeah. I get that Han does, you know, all these things, but did this whole scene need to happen just to get that point across that for all these years Han's been still cheating people out? He literally, I feel like you literally could have taken that scene and Han say, quick, we got to get out of here. I don't know when one of my clients is going to show up and, you know, rat me out for something. Like, you know, I'm not going to write this scene perfectly, but did you need to have both of them come in and then have freaky tentacle monster fly around and kill like
the Rathtar?
It's a team
remaining guy.
Yeah, the Rathtar. Yeah, I think, like, I mean, the one thing that's interesting about that scene is the part when Han takes the guy and, like, throws it into the Rathtar's mouth or whatever, because that seems like a direct reversal of the whole, oh, Greedo shot first thing. No, we don't care about Han, like, not killing someone in cold blood. He'll do it. See, I'm J.J. Abrams. I did it. That's the most interesting thing, I think, about that sequence, but yeah.
I know that this is a tangent, and I do want to get back to this.
Sure.
But has it already been in discussion, since it was brought to my attention earlier, that apparently in The Rise of Skywalker, when Kylo gets the lightsaber, he does like a shrug really similar to Han?
Yeah, that thing. Yeah, like in Return of the Jedi, like when it's like, oh, what are you gonna do? I recognized it immediately. He becomes a lot like Han Solo at the end, and for all that they've tried to invoke that character down to literally creating a whole film about his young self, Adam Driver does it better than anybody else has tried. So I'll give him credit. This is his son. Yeah.
But yeah, I think since The Force Awakens is the most well-rounded of the three, I kind of rank it at least towards the top. But you know, I'm going to be rewatching Rise of Skywalker again tomorrow, so I'm going to be kind of adding that whole rewatchability factor into it, and just kind of seeing how it goes. Looking at The Rise of Skywalker, I know that a lot of people criticized it for being really fast-paced, and while the runtime definitely could have been extended, I mean, given that it's like literally a final, like, was this already a discussion that went on forever?
No. I'm saying please don't extend the runtime.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, there was a thing, I don't know where I saw it, or maybe
find another magic dagger.
Well, I'm more me, like, necessarily with, like, you know, some of the important parts.
Of course.
For example, you know, a big thing that I was kind of annoyed by was that Palpatine's sudden, like, recovery wasn't really explained so much in depth as much as I'd want it to be.
Oh yeah, we touched on
the dead speak. See?
Wait, what'd you say?
The dead speak. That's the
dead
first,
speak.
That's the first movie.
Well, I mean, like, okay, good semi-gray area introduction for sure. But I remember, you know, he shows up and it's like, you know, the first scene where he encounters Kylo Ren and he's talking to him and it's like, oh damn, it's actually Palpatine. The rumors are true. And it's like, oh, you know, as if they lie. But then I remember there's this one part where, I don't know if it's Finn or Poe who says it, where there was someone that was like, I don't know how he did it. Cloning or the Force. I don't know. He just like runs through like a few things of like what could have possibly done it. And I'm like, could you pick one?
Little push there.
Yeah, like
we talked about how Oscar
go
Isaac,
a bit further.
We talk about how Oscar Isaac has, and he sounds so disappointed when he says it. Just somehow Palpatine returned. He says it exactly like that, and it's like, oh, poor baby.
Oh, you just hate saying that.
Really? That's what we're going with? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one we're going with.
Your millions of dollars, huh?
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's the side you can take that, but
that was definitely on the list of things where I was like, you know, if they could have had any extra time, throw in a few sentences on how exactly Palpatine made his return. I would love to have anything, even if Palpatine said it, even if he was like, even like from the animation that we watched, like, I used the Force to heal my broken bones. Like, I watched that before I went to go see Rise of Skywalker, and because it was never explained, I walked out of that thinking, you know, that's my headcanon for how he did it. Because how else?
It's the kind of thing with like similar to how I would talk about Snoke around Last Jedi discussion time, where in one hand I am interested in knowing how Palpatine came back just for the sake of like understanding how this whole world works and how the Force works.
That's not how the Force works. God.
Well, that's one hand. But on the other hand, like, I know if they started explaining it, I would just be so bored. There's no way.
What if they tied in Darth Plagueis the Wise?
I didn't care for any Palpatine scene. Why would I want them to be long?
Tie in Darth Plagueis the Wise.
Just nonsense Force conversation where they just try to like classify the Force and stop it from being like this magical entity. Let's get really specific with how the midichlorians work. Like.
Well, no, we don't want that.
I just give me the interesting characters and skip over all the magic nonsense.
George Lucas wanted to use this trilogy to dive into the microbiotic world of the Force. I'm not kidding. That would have been.
I know. I heard about that.
Yep.
I have learned more about Star Wars lore.
Because I can imagine that at least being so weird that it becomes entertaining again.
Oh yeah, for sure. It would have been like Strange Magic. which is another movie we made the story for.
Well, then I take it back.
I assume that's what the creatures would have looked like, and they also would have sang pop songs. But yeah, continue, Taylor.
Oh, we're gonna get a midichlorian song musical.
Oh god.
High school midichlorians.
So Taylor, it sounds like you might be going Force Awakens as your top, Rise of Skywalker a tentative second, and Last Jedi in third. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that's kind of like my tentative list at the moment.
Disgusting! Disgusting!
Disgusting.
Last Jedi at the...
Is yours the opposite, Brian?
Almost. Last Jedi at the top. Force Awakens second.
No, not opposite. Sorry. Yeah. But yeah, what Brian's about to say, I'm sure I'm about to agree.
The Last Jedi, The Force Awakens, Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Totally. Okay.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, out of curiosity, since I just watched The Last Jedi,
please,
I kind of want to hear your brief take on, what made it so great. Because I didn't hate it, but I definitely rank it as the weakest between all three.
So it's the most interesting, and I'm sure Justin will have plenty to say about this as well. Just in terms of the ways, like everyone, you mentioned it briefly when you came on, and it kind of spoke to something that we were getting at before. That everyone says, okay, yeah, Last Jedi is about let the past die, kill it if you have to. That is what the villain is saying. The actual movie is more about a balance between what the past generation did and what the new one can bring to the table. When Luke says that, like, oh, I can't just come out here with a laser sword and take down the whole First Order. Well, actually, yes, he can, and he should submit to the legend. When Rey says, like, oh, like, is the Force then just about, like, what is it, like lifting rocks or whatever? And yes, she does eventually then, like, lift the rocks. But also she sees more of the moral complexity and the grayness to what's going on. She is potentially opening herself up to Kylo and the redemption and the hope that could bring, and then shutting the door on him. There's so much. Every character gets an arc in that movie in a way that in The Rise of Skywalker, you could argue whether or not they deserve it, but they get one, and you feel it, and it ties in all through. You have the themes of failure abound. You have even the Canto Bight stuff that everyone likes to harp on. I heard someone just today saying, like, oh, that was just an excuse for Finn and Rose to have a romantic subplot. That's, like, there are so many things it is before it is that. Yeah.
How romantic.
There's so many things it is before it is that. It's acknowledging the apolitical nature of the galaxy and the way that weapons are sold. And you have the DJ character who's able to bring out a Finn that, no, it's not just that he cares about protecting Rey, it's that he then is joining a cause that he believes in and he's identifying himself. And it's not just that it's wishy-washy. It matters, and he picks the side. And you have that, and you have the whole establishment of the legend of Luke Skywalker. Then you have the setup of them, because Rose gives them the little pendant, and then you come back to them at the end. There's so many things that it does before it's just like a romantic thing. But anyway, there's that.
Right.
And
I definitely, the romance was definitely not the killer for me.
Sure. Oh, of course. Yeah.
But Rose and Finn's story was the weakest part of the film, in my opinion.
It is.
Yeah.
As and it's funny because, of course, I was just having this conversation. It is only about 17 to 20 minutes of the film in total.
That's the
but
thing.
But of that, it moves really slow. There's a few messages in there that I get, especially when Rose is like, all these people, they sold their weapons and they're all rich. I want to destroy this place, and she ends up sort of destroying it in a way. And it kind of just felt a little slow, and the payoff is somewhat, you can kind of see it, but in the end, all I could keep thinking was, do they not realize the turmoil that is happening back on their home ships? Like, the thing that for some reason kept shocking me was that, like, all this stuff is happening, and the First Order keeps killing people all throughout these ships. Finn and Rose out on their casino adventure, and it actually, on this rewatch, I realized that they don't actually end up getting the guy with the red rose.
Master Codebreaker. Yeah. They don't get
that's the failure theming that Brian was going on about, right? I mean, that's what it primarily
it just takes a tangent and it goes with this other guy who trying as I watched to figure out like, am I supposed to like him or am I supposed to hate him? Because I sit back and I go, well, firstly, I don't like the way he looks, the way he talks, and you know, the one thing he does that's good is he opens the door. And yeah, that is kind of like what he was supposed to do, which is that he opens the door, and that was part of the deal.
He gives the pendant back. But the thing is, it's a subversion of, because it's the second movie in the trilogy, it's a subversion of a Lando type character of like, and Ryan Johnson talks about this in the commentary, and it's really interesting that it's the character that, it seems like that they're like this gruff person that doesn't really care, but then you see they're like good all along, and then they come along and help, and he wanted to do that and be like, yeah, it's maybe, and it ends up, yeah, exactly, that then he doesn't, and that he like abandons in the same way, yeah.
As we've seen, Ryan Johnson really likes taking things and, you know, putting a spin on it.
Yes, but I don't think it's without.
Knives Out, and he was great, and that was great. I love Knives Out. I don't want to go into that discussion because I'll talk about it forever. Right. But Ryan Johnson very clearly likes two things: the color red and taking things and spinning it on its head.
That's true about the red colors as well. Yeah. No, and he does.
I can respect the red. Of course, I respect the red coloring all the way. I have you know, big respect. Especially when it's used like with the salt and then Knives Out, a bunch of stuff there too. But at some point when you keep flipping things on its head, it doesn't really feel like Star Wars anymore. Right. And I think that is kind of what it was for me. And, you know, not to discredit, because Ryan Johnson for sure had probably a lot of, you know, big thoughts going into this on how can I make this story a little different? How can I make it compelling? But I definitely sat down and through watching it kind of got the least enjoyment out of seeing the stories, because there were scenes in it that I loved for sure. I love the Kylo Luke face off. You know, as controversial as it may be, I love the scene with Leia and the Force. I know that she looked like Mary Poppins and she looked kind of stupid, but I loved it because I thought it was cool. I gave it a thumbs up, and
we finally were paying it off. Yeah.
In theaters, it made me cry because, you know, it was a beautiful tribute to Carrie Fisher.
For sure.
It was really, really great. I know that like some people looked at it and was like, oh, she looks so funny. And I was like, yeah, but that's not what it's supposed to be. So I'm not going to really take that in mind. I thought that Leia was great in the movie. She kind of had a bit of, you know, she has all the whole philosophical talk of, you know, look to the sun and the spark that, you know, starts the fire. But I was kind of like, you know, that is what Leia does though. And although she kind of gets this feistiness in her character, which is always enjoyable from Carrie Fisher, she does still have that root level of, you know, talking a little more philosophically and making metaphors and whatever.
The spark that lights the flame, that'll become a fire, that becomes a candle, that'll burn the First Order down.
Which is funny because then obviously like there's a fire that burns down the background and that fight scene and everything like that. And the taking down of Snoke was also like, you know, as I watched it again and again, you know, I did like it because Snoke makes it obvious that he can, you know, telegraph what Kylo's about to do with the move.
You mean Palpatine?
Wait, what? Oh yes, I mean Palpatine, of course, yes.
Because he was controlling Snoke the whole time, of course, as they planned.
No. Well, yeah, I remember thinking about that when we watched The Force Awakens, when like Snoke is first introduced, and I'm like, oh, is this Snoke number 1 or Snoke number 7? Which is it?
Yeah, like what I would say is I totally understand where you're coming from. For me, any subversion isn't just for the sake of subversion. It's always like commenting in an interesting way. Like, because the whole thing with Poe, in the beginning you see, oh, he does this heroic thing where like everyone else in the fleet dies, and it's kind of like a mini Death Star trench run type thing. It's like, oh, well, you see, well, I did what I was trying to do and everyone else died, but that's okay, right? And Leia's like, no, slapped, demoted. It's not about being a hero and going out in these blazes of glory. It's about protecting what we have. And I like how it questions Star Wars in meaningful ways while also servicing all of the characters and making them feel like they have their own identity. Justin, do you have any thoughts on Last Jedi? Because I don't think you've been able to say them as of yet.
All too familiar.
Well, I haven't even know where to start. There's just so much. But I mean, like, I will, to put it simply, if we want to just keep on getting back to Rise of Skywalker.
Sure. We'll get back to it. Yeah.
To sum up thoughts quite simply, I think Luke's arc in the movie is the most interesting one in the trilogy. I love watching him really dismantle his own image of what this lore behind him is, and just try to really just crush it due to this overwhelming guilt he has about the things that he's done in the past. And he's become just so self-aware about the image that he reflects onto the world, but then understanding the value it could bring to the table. And that comes into play with the fight with Kylo at the end, which is probably my favorite part of the trilogy.
Great is so great.
And then everything with Rey I think is fantastic. I love everything with Rey in regards to her figuring out, coming to grips with everything regarding her not having a particularly special past, but she's still anyone could carry that power. Same thing, cool, epic broom kid, and that's just such a beautiful moment at the end right there. But also everything with Rey and Kylo, I think, is super interesting. I love their dynamic together, particularly in that movie. I would say that I am most in love with angry Kylo in Force Awakens, but we get a lot of really interesting stuff with Kylo thematically in Last Jedi, so I'll give him that. And again, the Rey dynamic is great, but I agree. I'm not all that invested with the Finn and Rose stuff, but I still find them to be endearing characters, so I could roll with it. And again, and I don't think I have anything special in particular to say about the Poe plot. But when it comes to how the movie works thematically, I think Last Jedi is leagues ahead of any other Star Wars movie.
Definitely.
When it comes to being super engaging, it's not quite to the Force Awakens level, right. But it's rare that I'm bored anyway. And if at any point the movie gets a little slower, I'm at least intrigued by what's going on. Mm-hmm. When we get to Rise of Skywalker, things are moving a mile a minute, and it does quite lose me frequently. We were talking about, the one scene that kind of loses me in Force Awakens.
Right, Raftars,
on the ship, mm-hmm. with dealing with the monsters and all. I felt like that was a lot of Rise of Skywalker was for me.
It was.
As opposed
that whole scene kind of just felt
that feeling of it's losing me. There's just a lot going on, and I don't care about what the characters are going through.
Right up at the top with the light speed skipping, that's almost like a little bit of a Rathtar scene. And I think I like that scene fine, but it's kind of on the level of the Rathtar scene in terms of
I mean, the issue is it's fine when it's an isolated situation, but when you feel like you're not connecting to the characters and they're just off doing adventure nonsense for a lot of the movie, I do not feel attached to the characters like I was in the first two sequel movies.
Mm-hmm.
Man, when Luke showed up in that cave and had that scene with Leia, and then he walks out and the music kicks in of the dun 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 dun, dun, and the I will not be the last Jedi and the perfect cut to Rey. That stuff is the best of anything in the sequel trilogy.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Sure. That scene for sure was definitely the strongest for me as well. I know that I wish we could, instead of ranking it as the films, if we could almost rank the stories, because a lot of the story, the Kylo and the Rey stories are consistently always at the top. I feel like they always end up getting the most, they're the biggest meat of all the trilogy, and
it's just fortunate since they get the most screen time.
Right.
And it totally makes sense. And I think that the Force Awakens is the perfect introduction to the two of them, and not the Rise of Skywalker, excuse me, The Last Jedi is the strongest when it comes to really pulling out the strings of who they are and trying to put them together. And like you said, Brian, it seems like it's getting somewhere until one kind of pulls away and Rey has to shut the door. Right. And I definitely really, really like that, because then in The Rise of Skywalker, it's picked up yet again, and it goes on and on and on.
It does go on and on.
It goes on and on for a while, and there are some good things, and then my least favorite was how it ends.
It's there's so much. Rise of Skywalker is aware that Rey and Kylo is its biggest asset, and 8 sure uses it a lot, because they fight with the lightsabers a whole bunch. Force Awakens and Last Jedi, were really reserved with when they would bring out the lightsaber. So, when they popped it, like, especially the way they ignited them in Force Awakens and the sound they would, like, when Finn first does it, like, it's like a legit, and of course at the end in the fight, and when they fight in after killing Snoke.
Please just repeat your tweet about this.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Like, after they fight Snoke,
I think I saw some where they use it as a flashlight.
yeah. Thanks for spoiling the punchline, Taylor. But yeah, in Rise of Skywalker, it's like, I'm just gonna use this as a flashlight. That's how present the lightsaber is. Which, like, fine, but it gets. My eyes start to glaze over a little bit. They do some cool. I like some things we haven't mentioned yet. When they do, like, a little bit of extension of, like, the force power of, like, okay, the projections and things appearing. We saw in Last Jedi with, like, little rain droplets that fall on his hand and stuff. But in here, you see when he snatches the necklace off of her, or when he sees that, like, the Vader mask remnants fall down and he figures out where she is. Like, that stuff is really cool. Or when she hands off the lightsaber to him in the climax.
Yeah, I love that.
Good, like, creative, engaging, new stuff that I really like. And yes, their fight with the waves crashing around them. That's a really good fight.
Yeah, that was really cool.
That was really
I wish there was more scenes where it's characters fighting other characters I care about, or at least am invested in the outcome of. Because, like, it's a lot of really interesting mixed emotion moments for me throughout the entire movie. Like, one really interesting moment for me when it comes to, like, figuring out my feelings is, you just brought up the moment where Rey hands off the lightsaber to Kylo. I'm like, that is the coolest thing. And then he fights the Knights of Ren that are, like, we're supposed to kind of be important,
right.
and they are hinted at being a really huge deal in Force Awakens, but they're kind of just like some faceless guys that you could just imagine
literally faceless,
had no relation to Kylo, but they're supposed to be like his brothers in arms from, like, way back when you broke free from
they're literally faceless.
They're just some whatever guys, and it's like, okay, well, time to watch this happen for a few minutes.
Yeah, there was a meme that I saw about the Knights of Ren where they just took the screen cap of Patrick from SpongeBob, and he goes, they're just standing there menacingly.
That's perfect. That's exactly what they do. That is the only thing that they do in this movie.
So yeah, I know that, like, they definitely didn't do much until obviously that final fight with Kylo, Ben Solo, because he was Ben then.
Oh, of course, big difference.
Well, so let me ask you, Brian, how did you feel about the treatment of Return of Harrison Ford?
Oh, I that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Okay.
I think that was well handled. It should have, everything about what the story had built up to would suggest that you would finally have Leia and Ben meet up, but obviously they couldn't do that, and this was the best thing that they could have done. So I'm all for that. I think that's good.
I definitely kind of like, so I'm kind of on the same road with you for that as well, and also kind of taking a turn to Leia. I remember kind of obviously going into it with the mindset of, this is recycled footage.
Right.
They couldn't get a lot of stuff with her. I was curious to see what they could pull out of this recycled stuff and what stories they could get. And I was pleasantly surprised that it felt pretty natural, and everything kind of seemed to work. The one scene where obviously you had to kind of have one character speak for her was right before the end, right before she died, where someone said she's going to try to reach out to him, and I was like, I guess that's like, they had no choice. They couldn't really get her to say that, or let her kind of speak for herself. They had to have someone else say it. But I really loved her treatment, and I definitely know that in the final climax of the scene where they were fighting with the waves, her reaching out to him was like just that beautiful moment. And when it was followed by Han then visiting him, well, obviously it's ambiguous whether or not, it was, a ghost or spirit, or no, it was just memory. His head, or that's what it is. In memory or something like that. Yeah, memory could be it, honestly. I kind of just felt that chunk of the movie, it was where it was kind of its strongest.
I would agree there.
And that for me really just I don't know, it felt very special there.
I agree.
It led into the finale. It was, it was right before, and I definitely, I don't know, there were a lot of climaxes for sure in this movie, and the one with Palpatine didn't feel as maybe not as like rewarding as the one with Kylo and Rey when they kind of have their moment there with the waves and everything like that. You felt the reward of that arc coming to sort of a positive close. While with Palpatine, kind of seeing Rey fight back, yes, you're rooting for her, and yes, you're like, woo, woo, woo. But since I know this is the last movie, it's almost like I was like, okay, how is she going to fight back? And her kind of gathering
closer.
And she does it by what? By moving closer.
When she's going against lightning, she kind of she pushes, and I'm like, yeah, she's doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always going to be a tricky situation when you are trying to one up a fight between two very important characters with their own like understandable belief systems, and like you follow them throughout a long period of time, and then you follow that up with character faces against Scary Man who just appeared again this
yeah.
It's tough to do. And I think
especially when you don't give them an introduction
back in to help, because then you feel that there's a meaningful connection within the scene, even though they're not opposing one another. Like the meaningful connection between Rey and Kylo makes you a lot more interested in what's happening in the scene than when it's just Rey and Granddaddy.
Yeah, long have I waited for my granddaughter to come home. I'm so glad that was the second half of that sentence. That was such a hyped line in the trailers. But anyway, I wanted to read what Blue Jay wrote in this comment because I thought it was a really good observation. That they really like Kylo Ren's versus Ben Solo's body language and how evident it is when you're actually paying attention to it throughout the movie. I think, it really speaks to, again, Driver's performance. We were, as you said earlier, Taylor, about him like invoking Han a little bit. I thought, he handled that, and he had to really carry that in terms of just his physicality, because for the last hour he doesn't say anything other than "ow." That's it.
Yeah. So it was a lot more show and not tell, which was always that was pretty good. I had a point that I want to say. Oh yeah, when in the final part, after, Palpatine is doing his giant lightning bolt into the sky, and when actually, I guess it was right before that, when Rey first starts fighting him, I started having, like, flashbacks to Avatar, when, they were fighting the Fire Lord, and they had to learn how to do the lightning redirects. And I almost half expected him to shoot lightning at her, and her to redirect it back to him. And I don't know, like, why, like, my head was thinking, like, oh, that's totally what she was gonna do. And then when she didn't do it, I went, why didn't she do that?
Wait, so Taylor, you mean paying off the thing earlier in the movie when we saw that she had the lightning come out of her hands and it doesn't come back at all currently? Why would you do that?
I was so confused during what you were saying, because the moment you started saying her, I was like, Azula?
Oh, no. Well, obviously it was
like, we jumped to like Zuko and Azula's final fight, but then like when the Zuko.
Oh, I guess I forget.
I'm on the same page now.
I guess he just directs the lightning with Azula, right?
Well, I figured Taylor was a little fuzzy on it because he said the Fire Lord, so I understand. Something that I also haven't addressed is how nonsensical it is that like what killing Palpatine actually does. Does it have the Sith go in her body, or what is it? So this is the way it's like. So first Palpatine is like, kill Rey to Kylo. You have to kill her. And then Rey shows up and is like, nah, just kidding. I want Rey to kill me.
Return of the do it.
Do it. I want Rey to kill me. Then all the Sith can go in her body. And then, nah, just kidding. I want Rey and Kylo's life force so I can have it because I'm the one true Sith. And then, nah, just kidding. If you kill me now, Rey, the Sith won't go in your body and I'll just die. Yeah, it's all good. Okay, promise.
So like the concept there for the light training, right, was something to the degree of, there's something really special here, and that's enough for me to not need my original plan anymore.
Because they're a Force dyad, which was,
Also, thank goodness that the Mandalorian showed us that the Force can heal wounds with Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
So you did.
Otherwise, I'd be like, Rey, what you doing to that snake?
If the baby does it, then it makes sense. That's what I like to say. No,
as long as the OP lady isn't doing it first.
Right, exactly. No, since Palpatine, I get, he noticed it was a Force dyad, which isn't really explained exactly what it is. It's just, there's two Force sensitive beings, that collectively share the power of one individual. I get, and like it's almost like implying that like they have his power, and that he wants. I'm confused. I don't know. All I know is he takes their life force and then he makes the lightning go into this, and it's a cool visual, and the sounds like it's coming from a meme, which is hilarious.
It really did, and of course, like I'm a sucker for sound design, and like when that happens, like as big as it was and as sort of memey as it was, it really sent that shock through when he did it, and you really got the power from that. So
I leaned forward a bit. Yeah, I leaned forward to that moment, but yeah, it did go. And
I know that. So, Brian, how many times have you seen it now? Twice. And Justin?
Once.
Okay. So I know that, obviously, like I said, rewatching is a big thing for me, and it really kind of helps me settle my opinions. And I know that after watching it tomorrow, I'm going to be having a lot of discussions with the people that I'm seeing it with, and they're just going to be talks of what they like and what they dislike. And
you just have them watch this little podcast.
Yeah, I'll just put this on. How long has this been going on for? Like an hour and a half?
2 hours and 45 minutes.
Would you like to watch the movie or the podcast discussing the movie? Yeah, but
we're nearing 3 hours.
Yeah.
Oh wow, damn! I have been only at the very end. Well, best for last. No.
Yeah, no.
We did have a different guest on for a while.
Yeah, was it?
Jane, my friend Jane. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Who was also But you're the big counterpoint, I think, which was needed, because there needs to be balance to the Force, guys.
But now we have
if this was all just bashing,
so now it's better.
Yeah, now we have 3 white males. The balance is restored.
Oh, great.
Oh no.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that, like, it's been, when you first watch the movie and you walk out of it, you have like your thoughts, and they kind of take time to marinate in you, and the things that you liked, you start to like a bit more, and things that you dislike, you start to dislike it a little bit more.
Sure.
And then there are things that you're kind of ambiguous about, and they're kind of in that moral gray area, as with the Force, obviously there's the gray area. I definitely feel like on my rewatch, I'm going to be able to sort a lot of that stuff in the gray area into where I kind of feel with it. And although I can definitely say that I put The Force Awakens above The Last Jedi, the Rise of Skywalker is kind of still the one where it could definitely kind of just go. It's definitely not going to be number 1. I know that for sure. Okay. But I could see it kind of shifting between 2 and 3 really easily, just based upon how my second watch goes.
Okay. Cool.
Just because, like I said, rewatching is a big thing for me, and it's like, do I enjoy the movie more or less? And sometimes it's more, but sometimes, even if it is more, the things that I disliked also kind of stand out. And that was what kind of happened when I watched The Last Jedi. Yeah. I was really getting pissed by the Rose Finn subplot, and how just like long and kind of a little slow it was, and the characters that were in it and such. So that's why I'm a little sour, at least for The Last Jedi, even though all the points that you guys are saying, I'm like, yeah, that was a good scene. Yeah, that was a good scene.
The transitions in the beginning also are just so well done. Like arguably, like I could see someone feeling like it's a little disjointed as it goes on, but like at the beginning when you have, where's Rey? Cut to her on the island. Perfect. Luke going, where's Han? Cut back to then what's going on with First Order stuff. And then seeing Kylo break his helmet, prepare my ship, close up on the broken helmet. There's no light left in Kylo Ren. Wipe, show Rey back on the island. Such good transitions that were like masterful, and I loved them. But yeah, like we can get into closing thoughts because we've definitely been going on for a very long time. But one thing I wanted to say when it came to we were talking about this early on, and I did have this quote at the ready for Finn Poe and like being a romantic relationship, because J.J. Abrams had this. J.J. Abrams had this to say about it, and I'll let you guys read into it what you will. Quote from J.J. That relationship to me is a far deeper one than a romantic one. It is a deep bond that these two have, not just because of the trial by fire in which they met, but also because of their willingness to be as intimate as they are, as afraid as they are, as unsure as they are, and still be bold, and still be daring, and still be brave. To which I say, yeah, you're right, J.J. Abrams. That doesn't sound romantic at all.
It's it's so weird being so appreciative of these brave young men while making the most cowardly decision and the kind of connection that they have as a filmmaker.
But I'm not done. He goes on
especially when Finn's initial I don't even know about what his initial romantic interest is because kind of seems to shift all over.
Oh, it's a revolving door in every movie, yeah.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be completely out of line for it to suddenly shift to a very new character this time around.
Very, very new. Yeah, exactly. No, a new. But yeah, then I'm not done. J.J. Abrams continues to say, almost as if as an apology, in the case of the LGBT community, it was important to me that people who go to see this movie feel that they're being represented in this film. Not that they're being represented, that they feel that they're being represented. So have a lesbian kiss in the background.
Well, sorry, Singapore. I'm afraid you won't feel like you're represented.
Yeah, I feel like they cut something out.
I feel like I sense something with the Force that there's something missing.
There's a disturbance in the edit. I hope it's really sloppily done too. Like it cuts in the music and everything. Like so, it's like John Williams, like da da da,
and then you're like, yeah. like you hear like a beep almost, like a sensor.
Maybe they have to replace it with a straight kiss to get the timing of the music. Okay.
Well, what was funny is I was seeing all the tweets before I saw the movie where it was like, yes, two ambiguously gendered aliens kiss, and that's what the gay kiss is, and it's like, yes, it is center screen, and yes, there is like, but it happens for like a second, and it is one of those things where when I saw it, I just went, oh, there it is, and I kind of went, wait, that was it? Oh, and my mind immediately went, well, that's easily, you can easily just cut that out. Like that doesn't affect anything. It's not like there's any dialogue that leads up to it. It's not like there was any sort of reaction shots or anything. It was one shot where it just happened.
And only one of the characters we know from Last Jedi, who's just like a background character.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, and of course, when I was watching it, I kept pointing out. I'm like, "Oh, she's the one. She's the one."
Yeah, and the Beauty and the Beast live action remake had a bigger gay moment than this had. So yeah.
I actually didn't see that, so I
thought he just danced with the guy.
Yeah, but they also like kind of build up that like he realizes he's too good for Gaston, and they make it like the subtext way more text that he was like interested in him romantically. So that's, I mean, if someone's saying something about
it's a character journey that relates to the subject.
Right. And when you're trying to make a journey that someone can relate to, that is what I feel is more important than just throwing it in there so someone can feel like they've been represented by just seeing it happen rather than actually feel it happening to themselves as they watch. Like, it almost feels like it should be unconscious when you have a story where a character goes through an arc that resonates with you and with your character and with who you are. Right. And instead, if it's just kind of just thrown in there, and if it especially feels a bit shoehorned, then you kind of sit back and you don't feel like it's a representation. You feel like it was thrown in so that you could go, there it is.
Yeah, it's thrown in so like Babu Frick, you could go, hey!
I will say I'm excited to see Babu Frick again because I don't know, just like I didn't have many big opinions on him.
Well, I'm glad he didn't die because his planet exploded, so I thought he was dead. Well, yeah, I guess he's fine.
Biggest loss.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. So, Conics. It was nice. I'm glad Carrie Fisher. Like, I'm glad Billy Lord is in the movie, and like she kind of looks like Leia does in Return of the Jedi. That's nice.
Yeah.
All right. Like any final thoughts as we close out the Skywalker saga, because there'll never be any more Star Wars content. Definitely not in a few hours on Disney Plus. Definitely no more Star Wars.
I was just gonna get at least there's Mandalorian.
At least there's Mandalorian.
Is that gonna be in half an hour?
No, because it'll be on
3 a.m.
Yeah, 3 a.m. for us. Yeah.
All right, it's gonna be up there for that. No, I'm just kidding.
This is not the way. Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, Mandalorian is a whole nother discussion that I would love to have.
I wouldn't really have anything negative to say. It would just be like a gushing.
It would be gushing. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Once that show is once the first season is done, maybe we'll talk about that. Was that something that you all, the Blue Jay and Mama Buckstein, is that something you would like to see? Because that's all who's watching right now. So if that's something you'd like to see.
Said that he was watching at a point. Not sure if he's still.
Who's watching?
Ben.
Oh, Ben. Oh, okay. Ben, is that something you'd like to see?
The movie. Yeah. He got out maybe 2 hours ago, and he said that he was watching it with his dad on their ride home. I was like, oh my gosh, yes.
Nice.
Our little voices.
Our little picture coming through. But yeah, I'm disappointed. I was hoping on the second viewing I would be more, now that the shocks of the reveals that made me so angry of Rey being a Palpatine and the kiss and stuff like that. Now that had gone, I knew what it was. I thought maybe I'd get into it more, and even in the I can get into the adventure serial nature of jumping from planet to planet and collecting all the Horcruxes / Infinity Stones, because I guess that's what we have to do in the last movie of a big.
Feels familiar, yeah.
Yeah, sure, I can get into that, and the mechanics of 3PO, he can't translate a Sith language and that, cute, clever things like that I could get into, but eventually it gets bogged down. It's repetitive. It's not propulsive. The characters feel like they're not moving forward, and the assets it has are assets, but it's the weakest of the trilogy for me. Still better than the prequels. Definitely better than the prequels. I care more about it than Rogue One or the Solo. Yeah, for sure. So I can give it that, but yeah. And I think it's weaker than any.
Here's a fun tidbit for me, which was that when I went to go see the movie, we saw it in this little hometown theater. It wasn't an AMC or anything like that. And so they had a bit of merchandise, Star Wars merchandise, stormtrooper heads that you could drink soda out of or eat popcorn out of, and little BB-8 heads. And we got the Millennium Falcon thinking that it was for the Rise of Skywalker, and we were so excited because you could drink a slushie out of it. And we sat down and we started drinking out of it, and we turn it over, and it has the Solo title card on it, and we both just sighed and went, "Damn it!"
That was when we first saw that ship. It was first in that movie. The origin.
But yeah, that was just at least how I kind of was able to be like, "Oh wow, Solo was a thing."
The theater I went to had an R2-D2 popcorn bucket, which was pretty cool. It was literally R2-D2 as a popcorn bucket. But yeah. Any exciting food capsules in your theater, Justin? Because that's where we're at now.
No, we got nothing.
Nothing?
Maybe the popcorn container, the Star Wars themed.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, I was such... The whole experience is becoming blurry.
Already?
Oh, man. But if anything, it was just a new coat of paint on it, so to speak. Quick side note, just for the funsies of it, we went 3 hours without really digging into our feelings towards Rey as a Palpatine. We went into every single other thing we could really dig into. But that's the one thing that people probably come in wondering, oh, did they like that? I mean, I think you straight up said you didn't like it, but I don't think...
You're right. I did breeze past it while making another point, because I kind of just took it as a given that it was terrible, but just to say, I said briefly, bloodlines, blah, 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 getting back to it, and that it's just redoing Luke again. Okay, here's then a dark side person that was in your family, and they try to say it's more interesting, but it's not. So we did talk about it, but going more fully into it, because that's really the big nail in the coffin for me of that's what's making me, that's what takes it from all right, mediocre to I'm negative on this, because you didn't have to do that. You could have just made it that literally don't have to change that much at all. Don't have to change that much at all. All that you really needed to do was have it be, okay, Palpatine senses that Rey has been born and that the Force is strong with her, and that's what compels him to go find her. And still you could have the parents, try to protect her and sell her into slavery because they love her, because that makes sense. You can still do all of that.
Selling implies money is made.
Right. But that would make much more sense, because Palpatine's kid, the next generation, that doesn't factor into all of this. So just make it Palpatine recognize, because he's strong with the Force. He's oh, there's this Rey that's come along. Okay, I want to get Rey. And you could still even make it I'm all for you, Rey. I think this can be a thing between the two of us, because you're strong with the Force. You're who I've been looking for. Just make it that. Just make it that. And that's why I thought when he said, like, I wasn't lying when I said they were nobodies, because they were nobodies, but the power of the Force that you had within you, it still drove Palpatine to you regardless. But no.
It's such a big, that's such a big theme in Last Jedi is, of course, even if you come from nowhere, it's about what you make of yourself.
Which
and that's
I love.
But when you have a line like, oh yeah, your parents were nobody, so we're not retconning that, guys, but then goes on to say, but your grandfather, on the other hand, it's like, okay, well, you did erase the thematic importance of that thing in the last movie.
Oh, and
you didn't retcon anything specifically.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to like
semantics,
what these mean, yeah, you're going for. You know what? If they did this in the first place, it would be fine. But it's like you take a perfectly like really good thing thematically, and you kind of squish it. To try to do your own thing that you think is more interesting, is you introduce the mystery box of where Rey's parents, and you got to fulfill that mystery box, and the audience wants to know who's Rey related to. Is it Obi-Wan? Nope, it's Palpatine.
And to rebut one last thing that I saw on Twitter about this, where someone was like, "Oh no, the new Star Wars movie showed that the main hero, who was a nobody, is actually related to some big evil person." Wow, it really ruined it, as if to say, like, people didn't mind with Empire Strikes Back, but now it's a problem. Okay, guess what? Luke Skywalker wasn't a nobody. His father was like the big Jedi guy that Obi-Wan hung out with all the time, and that's why he approaches Luke. So that argument isn't valid.
I'm just imagining you with like some crossed arms. I know the audience can actually see how you look because I'm not real. I don't have YouTube open right now. But please do that. Oh, there it is. Yeah, there it is, Brian. Thank you.
Oh, I did.
Of course, I'm just laughing at the thing that you liked on Twitter, Brian, with Ray William Johnson.
Well, I did my own just now of I'm Ray.
Yes.
Oh, hold on, let me do it.
Mr.
I'm Ray.
Ray.
Ray who? Mr. Ray. Oh!
I was laughing at that earlier. I thought that was great, and I was like, yes, loving all of these tie-ins, all good ones.
I wish that's what they did.
I know that we could talk about a million things, and I think the last thing that we can decide good or bad on is Rey Skywalker.
Well, yeah, we talked about that a little bit.
So we were kind of talking about this. I think we landed on for me at least. I landed on it's okay-ish, but like they needed to do other things to make Rey's arc feel more fulfilled. Because if you're gonna enter on embracing the Skywalker side of things, you need her to be able to embrace her own character journey in some way that very much feels her own. Closest we get is her lightsaber is her own unique color.
Yeah, she buries their sabers.
What I kind of felt was that I bet had it not been for Carrie Fisher and the situation that they had with her, they might have been able to make it feel a little bit more like she had a connection with the two of them, and that payoff of seeing both of them at the end when she's asked the question who she is, and seeing the two of them together. I feel that I do like that it definitely follows the idea of it's not where you come from, it is who you are. You can change yourself to be a different person, and I that's at least what I felt from it. And the lightsaber color change, I know, is kind of one of those things where it's like you could have a lot of different things to say to that, and she's her own unique person, yet she's also a Skywalker, and what does that mean? And it's like, at least for just the sake of simply the name, not the lightsaber, I felt that was at least a warm ending.
Sure.
At least to her arc. Maybe not the whole series, but at least to her arc of her adopting the name felt pretty nice.
Okay. I mean, that's the thing for me, in that, like, I think as a Skywalker trilogy ending, it kind of makes sense ending on Tatooine, but like,
it's what Revenge of the Sith did.
For a sequel trilogy arc that's about Rey, not ending on her home planet or ending any way that she could really reflect on herself, feels so weird and empty. Like, I mean, you don't need to do the hero's journey concept beat for beat for beat. But I mean, if you think about just the classic beats of, protagonist returns home and is able to reflect on how they have grown and changed. Returning to Tatooine feels very hollow to me.
It made more sense for the prequel trilogy to end that way, because then it looks like the movie that we're gonna like go right into. So, but like, yeah, they end it with similar imagery. Blue Jay pointed out it would have been cooler if they had shown Rey actually getting her own kyber crystal. I agree. We talked, but they skip out on that. But this is the thing. Like Taylor, like I was saying this before. I'd be curious to see what you think of this. Like, we had built up Rey, like, having looked for her place in all of this, somewhere, some connection to, like, a family or a predestined legacy. And she's so obsessed with it and interested in it. I really would have loved if at the end, she's buried Luke and Leia's lightsabers. They're buried, they're laid to rest. Someone comes up to her, asks, "Who are you?" She says, "Rey. I'm Rey." They go, "Rey who?" Just Rey.
Definitely a different message that I think could also work as an ending. And I think especially with what I just said about how you didn't have enough of Leia in there, like you did have some good Leia moments, but Rey kind of coming to terms with it, with her just being herself, definitely has a different message that I also really do like. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if that happened, yeah, I think I would like that too.
I think I do like the Skywalker-ness of it, because it does say that she found a family that does mean a lot to her.
Yeah, it does make it the Skywalker saga. We'll give it that. So.
I do like that angle to it. Gosh, I just remembered something that I was trying to remember maybe like 2 hours ago.
I remember you were trying to remember. What were you trying to remember?
Because it was something in regards to the intro to Rey's conflict within this movie. Oh, this is the question I want to bring up. Growing up, did Rey not have a last name?
Good question. Yeah, I don't think she did. It was just Rey from nowhere.
Just like, oh no, we don't got that.
Well, kind of just like Han. That would have been interesting.
Rey Solo.
Oh no, that would be a bad end.
But I mean, the difference is, with Han, we get the sense that he was alone always, right? But with Rey, she did have a childhood.
No, you know what they should have done? They should have had the same guy from Solo that's like doing like the airport security that she's talking to, and then she's like, Rey, like, what? You don't have a last name? Solo.
That would be such a slap.
The worst would be if her last name was Solo, and then we still got the kiss with Ben Solo.
Go all the way back to the original.
Full circle. Yeah.
That'd be full circle for sure.
So what was the thing, Justin? Or was that it? Or
that was it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Perfect. All right. So I think I've exhausted everything there is to say about Mr. J.J. Abrams and his new movie. Ugh.
That thing. Well, join us tomorrow after I have my rewatch, and we can do this again.
Well, join us after The Mandalorian. We'll talk about season 1.
Perspective.
Yeah.
Well, especially taking all the stuff that you guys said I could definitely be easily swayed, but I'm really going to be looking forward to the rewatch too.
Good. Join us. All right.
Are we calling it a night, guys?
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
Calling it a night. All right. So this is, and remember, never underestimate a droid. Just Rey.
Until the second half of the movie. Then you can stop saying it.
Just Rey and just do it.
Just do it. See you later.
Why a droid?
Yes. See you later.
I was about to call it a fanfic, but it was a proposal, so to speak.
Oh, I gotcha. All right. Well,
next time.
Time.
We'll discuss the proposal next time when we also talk Mandalorian.
Next time, baby. Okay. Very good. All right. see you next time in a galaxy far, far away. Yeah, nobodies.